Hello, and welcome to the Saladcast on Sunday, the 22nd of January, 2023. I'm your host, Dan Train. Joining me today, Zachary Burgess.
Especially got the year right for the second time, so we're probably past the danger zone now.
Do you think?
Yep.
And Robert Kemp.
As soon as you said that, I did have my brain did kind of have a little aneurysm, and I was just like
Oh no, that's just a small one.
just a little one. I was just like, yeah. Oh, it is 23. Yeah, okay. Oh, I'm with you.
Just a minor date-related aneurysm.
Yeah.
Happens all the time.
Yeah.
Well, it's definitely 23 now because it's Chinese New Year today.
The other new year.
Kong Hai, Fat Joy.
Get your bunny-related things in every game.
Is it Year of the Bunny?
Yep.
Yeah, you're the bunny.
Oh, yeah.
Bunnies!
Happy New Year, Gregorian bitches.
Who were the Gregorians?
The people who are live during the period of
Calendaring.
It was one guy. It's like saying George or Elizabethan. It was a guy called Gregory, right? Oh, Pope Gregory, presumably. It's like Julian calendar is presumably Julius Caesar, right?
Yes, which is why it has July.
Yeah.
Great job,
Gregorian.
Gregory.
Gregorian calendar has the same months as Julian.
Or did they actually add more at that point? I don't remember.
I don't think
Because
so. I
obviously
think
the
it's
Julian
just how it's-
calendar was like, we're going to add like June and July, and like they added like 3 months or something at that point.
in that one. I think Gregorian is just a tweak on how the leap days are calculated.
Oh, right, just to like even out the
small
months or
tweak.
whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's more fun to do what the French did in the Revolution and just throw it all out, come up with new months, just start again, make time like metric. Why not have 10 days in the week? That makes more sense. Shit like that.
Well, it would if it was like a 5-day work week followed by a 5-day weekend.
Yeah.
If it was like an 8-day week followed by a 2-day weekend, then no, I do not want your metric weeks.
I feel like
No,
7-3 is more likely.
7-3. Yeah, 7-3 still feels horrid.
You can't work for 7 days straight.
Yeah, 5 is enough.
Yeah.
4 is enough, honestly.
Well, I mean, if
Yeah.
we're actually going to totally redo a week, then you don't put all the weekend days at one place. You spread them out.
Oh, so it's not like a. Then how'd you go away for a weekend? Like,
Well, you'd have to adjust other things too.
What's your plan, Zach? How's it going to work?
Well, I mean, if you go with 7-3, you're probably 2 and 1 would make sense. But then how do you split up the 7? Like 4 and 3 and 2 and 1? I guess.
I want to say this was a plot in Doug.
Probably.
When like they when it's like when I'm mayor, I'm going to introduce an 8th day to the week, and it's going to be called Fun Day.
That sounds about right.
Nickelodeon's Doug, not Disney's Doug.
Obviously.
What's Disney's Doug? Is that the
It's a
same?
shit remake. Obviously.
Oh, it's a
'cause
remake. Of
Disney.
the same... Oh,
I don't know if
okay.
it's a remake or if it's a continuation, but like, yeah.
How good was Doug in the first place to warrant even remaking?
Great.
Not that good.
I mean, I think I liked it.
It wasn't
fine,
one of the
probably.
classics, was it?
I mean, it's
Of
Well,
Nickelodeon.
it was sort of
pretty-
classic, but not in like. Not, it was classic for being sort of bad.
I mean, it
Yeah.
has its moment. I think
Mundane.
I've talked about it on this podcast before. Like, it had like in spots, it had surprisingly high production, right? Like that,
Yeah.
like when you think about the band, the Beats from Doug, right? They ended up actually recording a fair amount of music for them. And it's surprisingly okay. I think it's on Spotify.
Of course.
I remember that the dog is called Pork Chop, which
Yep.
is the
It
name
is?
of Pope's cat. Yeah. I remember Pork Chop having to do a limbo dance.
Also, that might have actually been in the intro. Like you see it
Oh,
every
really?
time.
Oh, yes, I think you might be right.
Classic. Trying to think what the most 90s thing imaginable is. I went back on YouTube and I was looking at the Clarissa Explains It All intro.
Saved by the Bell.
That's
Yeah, Saved by the Bell. Yeah, well, I mean, Saved by the Bell is
All
like
right.
that borderline 80s,
80s,
90s.
yeah.
Yeah,
But Clarissa says All's intro is kind of similar.
yeah. Way cool.
All right.
I mean, when was Sabrina? Was that like just about in the 90s, or did
That was 90s, but it was, come on, it was later.
Mm.
That was, yeah.
I mean, is Rocco's more 90s, or like Ren and Stimpy? I guess Ren and Stimpy, right? That's pretty
They're all
90s.
Yeah.
That's pretty 90s MTV, right? That's that.
Elaine, for like indie 90s, you've got The Adventures of Pip and Pete intro.
Oh man, that show.
Yes. Classic.
It was one of those shows that I think I hated at first, and then really got into, and then hated again because they didn't make many episodes. And so when it was on, it's like, well, I've seen this like a billion times now.
It always repeats, yeah.
And then like, was it the I forget what the full title was, but that Alex Mack. I ended up quite liking that, but I could never watch it because it was actually like a sequential series, which never really worked on kids' TV.
Arc.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was weird. That wasn't there something very similar to that, because she had the power to melt.
She did.
That was she turned
mysterious
into goo powers, right? But I'm sure there was something similar that also had goo powers.
I was reminded the other day by the Good Faces Twitter account that Animorphs was a thing.
Definitely not Good Faces.
No, really not good. I mean, that's the whole point in the Good Faces account, in fairness. They're not
obviously.
good faces.
What was Animorphs again?
I mean, dudes that turn into animals.
That explains the whole thing.
Right. Was it
And then somehow they
right.
made many episodes of a series based on that one concept.
And books.
And books. Probably
Right.
books first, actually. I don't know.
Probably.
So they were all like Professor McGonagall.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Did they have the power to actually? Because she can actually change her mass, presumably from a lady into a cat, considerably lighter. It's like, where does the extra mass go? It's like magic. I guess the whole thing is magic.
Into
like
dust that surrounds the cat. All the fleas that live on the cat. She's actually really heavy.
What, like super dense uranium fleas to like because it has to balance out with the same amount of mass energy. Yeah.
Or she gets like more powerful because all that density is now.
It's just
like,
energy. It's just a hyperactive cat.
I mean, that's the weird thing about Ant-Man, right? Isn't it? Because they sort of describe him like that. Is that because he's shrunk down, he has like but they don't really explain the change in density, but they explain it as like he gains energy or something. So that's why he can punch so hard when he's diddy.
Yeah,
but
sure.
But also then he gets massive and he still punches real hard like a giant. So it's not inverse.
No. I mean, that whole thing is ridiculous.
But they do at least say like when he's massive, it like tires him out super quick because he can't maintain.
Also, doesn't make any sense.
Like how you both said the opposite.
It does.
It doesn't make any sense.
In fictional land, it makes sense, doesn't it? In Ridiculo.
Yeah, but the whole point of him changing size is he's not actually physically affected by changing size. His effect on things changes, but he himself continues to function as a person. So when he's huge or when he's tiny, it shouldn't actually make any difference to him.
So, like in theory, when he's in like the super tiny quantum realm, right, he should like never get tired.
Yeah, exactly. If that's their logic, which that just doesn't make sense.
I mean, we're about to get a whole film on that, so
sense. Yeah,
we'll find out.
Quantum Mania. Yeah.
Like Marvel are getting weird with their titles, aren't they? Like they're getting less. They just go, yeah, fuck, whatever. We'll just throw out some random like Multiverse of Madness, Quantum Mania.
Well, before that they were really boring and obvious. So now when they're like, we've used all the boring obvious titles.
But now that I think they're in a bit of trouble because like we watched Multiverse of Madness and it's like it's not as mad as the title implies.
Nope.
I'm a bit worried that that's going to be the case with Quantum Mania as well. It's like this one's crazy, and it's like no, it isn't.
I was
it's
expecting
like all
much
the others.
more. And Thor has kind of got that. Like I watched Love and Thunder recently, and
does it include love and or fun?
I mean, it's spoilers. That's kind of how it ends. There's a specific they kind of lean into it, like late title card style. But it's a really good time. It's stupid. It's like it's proper dumb. It's like it's not Ragnarok levels good, but it's pretty good. and it's real dumb and it's real funny and it's just a roller coaster that makes absolutely no sense, but is enjoyable nonetheless. But some of the dialogue in it, especially at the start, is so hokey. It's unbelievable. Like, losing its like a little the believability quite a bit, even for the Marvel universe, right? It's like nobody would talk like this. Not even the Asgardians don't even talk in a sort of grand way that they used to. So when they sort of do, it doesn't sound right anymore. It's weird. It's a weird thing, but it's also quite enjoyable. But like, what I'm trying to say is like Thor seems to still get that right, like that. Just like, yeah, we are going zany, woo, but we'll lean into that 80s thing even more than Guardians of the Galaxy does, and it still seems to work. Whereas, yeah, Multiverse of Madness kind of dropped it a little bit. That wasn't that at all. I think it was like one of the more violent Marvel films, right?
Yeah, with Scarlet Witch going crazy, right?
Yeah. It's a weird one. They probably should have called it something else, not Multiverse of Madness. Like, they should have just called it
Multiverse of Murder.
yeah. Or perhaps lean into Scarlet Witch as like the subtitle, or
yeah, you'd be well confused if you hadn't seen WandaVision, I think, going into that.
Exactly, yeah. It doesn't sit on its own.
Yeah, I know.
Like, Wakanda Forever makes sense, but like even that's because it's just their phrase, isn't it? That's what they always chanted, so that's okay. Haven't watched that one yet. It's out on Disney next week, so
all right, okay.
I'll catch up, and then Quantum
Animorphs.
Animorphs, yeah.
I was thinking that like the first physics lesson I think I had in for GCSE maybe, or no, I can't remember.
What GCSE morphing
at Stowmarket? It was like, because we're talking about mass, and it was like I remember them asking us like, what is mass? And I don't think I've ever had a satisfactory answer to that. I got one relatively recently, which was like a new one, and I was like, oh, okay, that makes a little more sense.
I mean, isn't the sort of like GCSE way of saying it just simplifies down to, well, neutrons are heavy, right? That's what it's like.
You just hit me right. That's what you need. I put on my physics exam.
That's all you need to know. Neutrons are mass. Like, it doesn't explain anything, I know, but like that's kind of the GCSE way of thinking about it, isn't it?
Yeah, but protons, electrons have mass too, not just neutrons.
Oh yeah, of course. I forget protons.
Well, electrons. Do electrons have?
Yeah, do, but it's super tiny comparatively, right?
Because they don't move at the speed of light. That's how you know.
No. Exactly, that's how you know. Because if something is massless, it has to move at the speed of light, right?
Yes, mass is just condensed energy. There you go. That's how you.
That's it. Like, well, my latest thing is it's confined energy. That's that, which makes sense to me. Like, it's the same thing as energy. It's just confined in a small space. That's what mass is.
Dense energy.
Because I think what they said at the time was like mass is just a property of an object, which is its resistance to change in velocity. Yeah. Which is which is true, but it's also not very satisfying. It doesn't really say what it is. It's just like
that's the problem, really, isn't it? Because it's not actually it isn't actually anything. Really,
it's not a real thing. It's an observable.
Yeah,
unless you want to talk about some Higgs field stuff, but then that's a whole other problem.
Yeah.
You start to really lose me at that point. It's like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Quantum.
Well, it is quantum.
100%. Quantum.
Quantum is like a cool sounding word, but it's also comes from a normal boring word, right? Because it just means like it's from Latin, like it just means quantity, right? It's like quantity. It's like quantity is a normal word that everyone uses and thinks is boring, and quantum sounds cool and sciencey, but it's the same word. Like there's nothing different about it.
It just means a portion of, effectively. Like so, it's which kind of makes sense, right? Because it's a portion of.
It's in quantized.
It's an even smaller portion of things, essentially.
Yeah, it's like the smallest portion of things.
I mean, that's why it actually is bad in terms of a scientific term, because it's just like everything you think of quantum is like the people use quantum to refer to like a specific level of smallness that's like beyond atoms. You get the quarks, and then we're going into the quantum, and it's just like that's not what that means.
No, it's not. And but Quark, despite also starting with QU,
was just a made-up
sounding cool.
word.
It's just a made-up nonsense word, right?
Yeah.
It just
made
comes
up
from
nonsense
some
word
random-
borrowed from a poem somewhere.
Yeah, it's like Beware the Jabberwocky type thing.
And
But
why not? You can name anything you want.
Yeah,
That's what names are.
But then they bollocks that up as well by giving quarks the property of colour, which is not actually doesn't actually mean anything.
Colour.
It's just a number essentially.
And his spin.
Spin also is kind of not really a thing.
Yeah,
It's slightly more of a thing than colour is related to
color is a weird
property.
one. Yeah. Don't use other scientific terms. Don't double up scientific terms. Isn't that the whole point?
Well, they called it color because it actually is by analogy with color in some. It's a helpful analogy in some ways, right? Isn't it? Because you mix it's like red, green, and blue get mixed. There's three instead of positive and negative.
Well,
it's
there's
three possible charges that mix a bit like colors to produce.
Except they don't really mix. It's just you have to have all three is the thing. And then they change into each other in a specific loop, I think, if I remember rightly.
So basically, what you're saying is quantum physics is RGB keyboards.
Yeah, pretty much.
But then they went even further because they called it color by analogy with colors, but then they decided to call the field chromodynamics.
Yep. Oh boy.
Which is just so stupid.
There's going to come a point, isn't there, where most of this is because science, that there's a high possibility that's all going to be debunked and a new school of thought come in.
I mean, that's what that's what they hope for, right?
So we get rid of the stupid terminology.
Theory.
That's why.
Well, I don't know.
It's unlikely. Yeah.
Yeah. The problem is that they're, for as far as we can tell right now, and maybe it will get debunked, but it would be a fairly significant debunking. It's there definitely is this free trainery thing going on. So you're probably never going to get rid of the colour concept exactly.
No, probably not.
I mean, you might figure out why it's 3, which they don't know, presumably why it's 3 and not 4. Or
at least
2.
they didn't call it a trinity. That's we're probably okay there.
Yeah, but I think they deliberately avoid religious terms.
Yeah.
Oh, the God particle.
Yeah, apart from that one.
That was but that was an accident, was it? That was some newspaper did that, and they were like, "No, for fuck's sake, don't call it the God particle."
But it's stuck. Good old media.
Yeah. Anywho, quantum mania.
Also, I just want to say it because we've kind of skated around the edges of it, but it's a word that feels good to say. A bit like Bismol.
Obviously.
Boson.
Okay.
Boson. Baryon.
Meson.
Meson.
Phazon. No. Is that your Metroid Prime link?
No. Is it Meson or Mason? Is it Mason? How do you pronounce it?
I would have said Meson, but I bet that's probably an American/English pronunciation thing.
It might be Mason.
Mason. I finished watching that there not Mandalorian, Andor. The Andalorian.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. I really like that. I thought it was properly good. Especially, it got. It's I mean, it's weird because I don't usually come away satisfied from a series with so many hanging threads because it's not resolved, not even close. It just found an ending point of some kind.
I think there's supposed to be 2 seasons of Andor total, and it's planned. And the next one is about the true birth of the...
Absolutely, yeah, because presumably they've got to set up Rogue One a bit more. If they're going to do this, they've got to set up Rogue One a little more.
I think there's supposed to be a big time jump to the next season or something.
Yeah.
My understanding, but who knows?
Oh, maybe, I guess. But I don't know that that would work though, because there's so much going on right now.
It can't be that big of a time jump, regardless of anything that's happening.
Yeah,
they've only got so much space to work with, time to work with, space time.
Yeah, because the Death Star's being built, right? But
yeah,
there's not a good explanation for why the Death Star takes. I mean, obviously it's huge and it takes years to build, but how do they manage to build the second Death Star in 2 days? That's a bit.
Sure. Well, maybe they were always building.
Yeah, maybe they already had that one in the works.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
In the new canon, is that a thing? Have they not just not mentioned it ever?
Yeah, I don't know if anyone has ever mentioned why that happened so quickly.
I mean, was it 2 years, or is it like
I don't think they'd ever specify how long it is between those two films.
There are like significant jumps, aren't there, in time?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a little while.
Was it? No, it's a significant jump in time between the first one and Empire, right? And then the Empire and Jedi are quite close.
Yes, those are relatively close.
Well, at the end of Empire, they fly off supposedly to rescue Han, right? And then it starts with the rescue the next film.
Yeah,
right?
so there's a little bit of time there to set up the whole plan.
Yeah, but that's not necessarily a huge time jump, really.
No, I mean...
It's implied that it's not.
It's implied that it's not long at all, but Luke needs to train a little bit more to be who he is at the start of Jedi. You know, with
maybe, or he just got real good real quick.
Maybe, yeah, maybe just.
Maybe once he worked it out, it just became easy.
Yeah, I mean that's the anime way, right?
Yeah,
because
like,
he goes back to
Kung Fu.
He goes back to Yoda for more training, but that's after the rescue, right?
Yeah.
Anyway.
I thought Andor was decent. Like, I think it's good because, like, well, for one thing, it's not Boba Fett dumb. Like,
that was terrible.
It was pretty stupid. And the more I think about Boba Fett, actually, it's like I enjoyed watching it, but actually, the more I think back on it, the more I kind of hate it. Like, it gets dumber the more you ruminate on it. But also, like I don't know. I don't think Andor's perfect. Like, there's almost too much going on at times, and the way they edit around major points, so you don't always see everything. It's just spoken about. Can be pretty tricky. Like, not like even like I guess I was following it reasonably well, but there were still details I'd lost at times, and it's like it took me a few moments through the editing to be like, all right, what's happening now? Oh, right, we've skipped a bit. That must have happened during the edit or whatever, or between episodes, and I'm having to imply what happened. And it's a little tricky, and that I don't know, going into spoiler territory, but the whole thing with Krieger, whom I believe you never meet and you never see, and that whole thing is never actually on screen at all. It's only ever discussed, and it's kind of it's presented a little bit like a major plot point that you never see, but it kind of isn't. It's a weird one, right? There's like, I wonder if there's like too much of this like plots that will probably come back in season 2, but seem kind of meaningless and just confusing,
right? Because how do you know what a big sacrifice it is that he's been given up?
Yeah, because what's the whole deal between the whole conversation between Krieger and Sol Guevara and all that stuff? Anyway, it's like none of that really comes to anything in this. It's just they just seem to exist purely for a couple of dramatic conversations. So maybe if I was an editor, I might consider removing those segments, unless they, as I say, there's a plan for them.
Well, unless
that just hasn't unraveled itself yet.
Unless the problem was that they actually over-edited it in the first place and they cut out too much.
I mean, maybe, yeah, maybe. But that was definitely like confusing because you never saw any of that. It was only ever talked about. And I got myself a bit distracted trying to remember Forrest Whitaker's name, in fairness. Like, just spending most of the episodes going, oh, it's that guy, and I can't remember him.
Oh.
But it was good. I do enjoy it.
Yeah. Andy Serkis is good, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it was good.
And again, you don't see what happens to him, so I hope he was all right, but it's implied that he's not.
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you'll never know. I don't think they'll answer that. Yeah, I still think I don't know. I liked it a lot. It's just such a strange tone for Star Wars.
Yeah,
I like the tone.
There's so much. Darker.
I like it. It's just like I don't know. I don't think maybe it'd be better if it was Mass Effect, or just some different universe.
Maybe, yeah. I think I might have been a little too harsh, because when you first started describing it to me, I described it as a bit. Yeah. Is it a bit edgelordy? And it's like, well.
No, it justifies
kinda,
it.
But it works. Yeah. It's like edgelordy. I would put in the status that it's just being dark and moody because everyone saw that Zelda trailer and thought that would be the next Zelda game, and then Wind Waker came out, and it's like, no, it's not my Zelda. Yeah. But it's that sort of mentality. But it's like it's not that. It is good. I think it works like mainly because of the Star Wars. I think it works because of the Star Wars aesthetic, not because like. I mean, Star Wars is goofy at the best of times, but actually, this fits better with how the universe actually is. Like the whole going this slightly darker tone seems to reflect more of what actually, the universe is built on rubbish. Pretty much, it's all built on crap and lowly, humble people,
but
and technology that barely functions all of the time, and somehow that just plays into this.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's like the Empire would be a good thing if they just weren't so evil, at least had their technology on, right? It's like Eggman. Wouldn't it be a good thing for for the Sonic universe?
What, a benevolent dictatorship? Are you like Anakin talking to Padme on the moon? Like,
if he just wasn't so evil,
wouldn't it make sense? If we just, I mean, clearly a benevolent dictatorship would be the ideal form of government.
The problem is they're evil.
Well, what's Mando season 3 like coming up, isn't it? We'll see. I'm a bit worried this is going to be a bit too Filoni. We'll see. Hopefully he's been so good so far, Mandalorian. So I hope it doesn't go too overboard with the Clone Warsiness a bit. But we'll see. Either this one will do it or Ahsoka will do it, and I'm hoping it's Ahsoka.
Oh right, I keep forgetting that's coming.
And keep Mando how it is as like a space western thing, and then put all your crazy lore into Ahsoka.
Yeah, I think that's the safe choice.
Because the danger is it's now all about the Mandalorian civil war that happened. At least Bo-Katan's played by Starbuck, whatever. That's going to be awesome. I mean, that's always awesome. So we'll see.
But then Grogu, I can't help but feel they're going to make
it all about him.
Yeah, and I mean,
enough.
it kind of has to, but also I wonder if the cynical part of me is Grogu's going to be the lead into the next trilogy they decide to do, whenever that is, right? Right.
Do you think?
Well, it's because he's a Yoda or whatever. It's because he's one of them.
Maybe
he has to be that important somehow.
Maybe, but the timelines, I suppose he lived for ages, right? So
yeah, exactly. It could
approximately 900 years, supposedly.
But what's he doing during the sequel trilogy, the kind of Rey and Finn situation? And
what's anyone really doing during that trilogy?
Well, we know what Han Solo's doing. He's getting murdered or whatever, and we know what
Leia smuggling. I mean, that's not exactly unsurprising.
Yeah.
Back to doing what he does.
As far as we know of things that happened in that movie that weren't related to the actual fight, there was a bunch of planets got blown up and it just looked like they were just regular ass planets and the gambling planet. That's pretty much all we know about the universe of Star Wars in that current timeline.
That's true. Yeah, there's the Lake District planet, right? Or whatever. And the British Air Base planet.
Sure.
the general filming locations around England planets.
Yeah. Star Wars.
Yeah. Star Wars. Right. Should we get into video games since this is a podcast about video games?
I mean we could.
We haven't got any Jedi Fallen Order news, have we all?
No, nothing about Survivor just yet. As far as I'm aware.
Okay.
Other than that game's not that far away.
Yeah. There's a few games delayed from last year that are coming out imminently, aren't there?
Presumably before March, or approximately around March. Good old financial year.
Yeah, get it in before Q1 next year. Get him in. Not ketamine, get him in. What else is going on in news? Well, industry is going on. So I guess let's leave it a biggie, right? Microsoft are firing about 10,000 people. Just ruminate on that for a second. 10,000.
How many people have they got in? How many people are they about to get in Activision? Probably not 10,000.
Probably not.
Well, maybe. I mean, it is.
Yeah, maybe.
Quite a lot of different departments in that purchase.
And to be clear, that is across the entirety of Microsoft. That's not the Xbox division or the games division. But the games division is affected with Phil Spencer confirming that it's 343, the Coalition, and Bethesda, which is not a small thing to say, right? Because Bethesda is quite a lot of studios at this point have been affected. But it seems like the rest of Xbox Game Studios hasn't been touched, or at least not in a big enough way for them to be mentioned, which might seem a bit harsh. But I guess that means like people like Turn 10 and Playground Games and Ninja Theory and all the other studios they've brought on recently are okay.
Mm-hmm.
But Halo and Gears, two franchises that probably aren't at their peak anyway.
No. Yeah, they're suffering.
Not going to help Halo continue to try and be a live service.
Oh, man. Yeah.
I mean, the Halo devs are coming out saying like a lot of the Infinite problems is due to incompetent management.
Well, every dev says that ever.
Yeah, I suppose so.
As a dev myself, it's an easy thing to say.
That's true,
especially if you can't do things in the way you want to do.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard. Like I'm not saying it's not a good excuse. Sometimes it really is, but I think it papers over the problem sometimes.
Indeed.
But yeah, Halo Infinite's been struggling, right? It's like every now and then I get that like pang to be like, I should probably check in with it because I didn't think it was awful, but I did. I had a good time with it when it launched, but I kind of said at the time, it's like it's a little low on the content side. They need to churn a little more out here to make Infinite stand on its own as a free to play multiplayer venture. They do need to put in work here, which they kind of haven't. And all that seems to have happened in that time is the community has noticed more and more ways in which Halo Infinite is probably a bad shooter for online, as an online game. So yeah, Halo struggling, and we just haven't heard what Coalition are up to at the moment. Presumably Gears 6, but we've not heard anything about that. And as I said before, Bethesda is just huge. They've got a whole bunch of studios, so like id, I should say. I keep calling them ID, like from when we were kids and stuff, and I swore that's what it was. But id and the main Softworks, whatever the Fallout, Starfield team is, and Arcane, and all of those guys, whole bunch of people. I guess we'll find out what really happens, but. And it just strikes me as slightly weird timing, or maybe the best timing, I don't know. I haven't quite made up my mind on this, given that in a couple days' time, they're supposed to be doing a Xbox and Bethesda showcase event.
But this is like way bigger than games, right? This is Microsoft and Meta, and
this is
Google
like every tech company
Twitter, and they're all doing layoffs.
Just panicking for some reason.
Yeah.
This is what I always think like big companies with investors, they just have a tendency to panic as soon as there's any kind of market downturn. They don't ride the wave, right? They just immediately adjust and be like, well, we've got to make next year look better. And it's like, no, you don't. You're big enough to survive this. It's like the realities of the situation don't match what investors want from the situation, and it sucks.
Yep.
Business people be dumb, is what I'm saying.
Be panicky, that's for sure.
you're still going to get your dividends, investors.
Well, in cases where they get dividends at all, yes.
Big enough to get something right.
I mean, if you're that worried, just sell your stock. Exactly. Like, if you think it's going to go down, then sell. That's how stocks are meant to work, right? But no one ever does. They just demand that the company change to make it go up more.
They demand, yeah. It's broken. But that's for another day. Anyway, that's what's happened at Microsoft. Ubisoft are not. They're not out of this game either. But at least
even though it seemed like it.
But
last year.
Yeah, and at least they're not doing firings at the moment, at least as far as we know. But they have cancelled three whole games that were in production that we never knew about. So I guess they couldn't have been massively far along if they've been cancelled. And I suppose who knows when do games get announced versus how far along that project is. Can't say I know enough about that to know, but anyway, they're cancelling 3 games and they have delayed Skull and Bones again, which I find hilarious.
You think that's surely done by now?
Yeah, well, it looked kind of done the first time they showed it, right? And we're like,
well, because it was just using the Assassin's Creed tech, essentially.
Like boat engine. And it's because the original plans were just going to release this as a multiplayer mode, effectively, but rebrand it out of Assassin's Creed. I'm sure Skull and Bones was originally intended to be a quick win.
Yeah.
And it's turned into a whole other thing. It can't be good. I mean, maybe if it's amazing, that would be the best.
If they've made it into a real game, I guess it could be interesting. If it's not just like they've just taken this long to make the thing that we all thought they were going to make originally, where it was just going to be a quick multiplayer ship battling game based on the Assassin's Creed engine.
Yeah.
If they've somehow turned it into a real game, then maybe it will be worth the wait.
It'd be weird if it's just that now, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
After so long. There must be much more to it. Maybe it is like an Assassin's Creed game, but you're like an actual pirate now, and you're like shooting dudes, and it's not just on the boats. Maybe they've made it a Ubisoft single player experience, and not just a multiplayer thing. We have absolutely no idea. But anyway, all of this was apparently deemed necessary again as panicky people need to make cost-saving measures, and it's like out of a disappointing 2022, and it's like, well, it's disappointing because Ubisoft didn't put games out in 2022. It's like Mirage got delayed, Mario plus Rabbids apparently didn't make the numbers they were hoping for, but in a sort of Square Enix kind of way. It's like, I don't think it sold badly, but it didn't sell as well as the first game. I guess people tried that first game, and the intrigue factor is gone in a sequel.
Yeah,
I guess.
I mean, they wanted to see Ubisoft Mario, and now they're well, this is just more of that. Yeah. We don't need to see that again.
And they didn't put out a whole lot of stuff, even though Assassin's Creed has 1 billion games coming out in the next 2 years.
Well, a lot of remakes.
Well. Is it a remix? Because Mirage is coming out super soon.
I saw that one.
There's what were they? Jade, Hex, and then whatever the next big one was. I've lost track. I've forgotten. There was the sort of feudal Japan one, and then the witchy one, and then something else. I don't know. Oh, I've got a bit lost. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of Assassin's Creed coming. So, I don't know. And maybe they're working on The Crew 3? I don't know. When did Riders Republic come out? Was that last year? Or was that the end of 21?
That could have been 21.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you, Ubisoft. If you don't put games out, you're going to have a disappointing year. That's how it works.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, well, yeah, and of course, I keep it. It's always the afterthought in any time I sort of have a think about this. That Rainbow Six zombie game that came out last year.
Yep,
and was pants.
Why does that even exist? Rainbow Six zombies.
It's so stupid. I mean, I don't know that the idea is terrible, but
it was just like we're just trying to make a co-op version of Siege rather than a competitive version of Siege, and therefore we need some kind of enemy to fight.
And there are elements to its design that are vaguely interesting, like the fact you can lose your character and then it turns up as a rescue mission in later runs, but you have to play as a different character in order to do that. But apparently that all gets kind of negated when you get to a certain level anyway, and that's not a problem. Something like that. So they kind of undermine their own key mechanic. Ubisoft. That was Ubisoft. And the only other bit of like industry news I guess I've got is that one of our favourites, we've only ever put out one game.
That we know of.
That we know of.
If you look on Steam, you'll find some more.
Ghost Ship Games, the developers of Deep Rock Galactic, have bought a minority stake in Bolverk Games, who are a VR studio. So, everyone's now hype about Deep Rock VR-based stuff. Or maybe they just work... or maybe they're going to hope to leverage for some new IP. Who knows? Anywho, Ghost Ship Games doing well. Release of Derg on console platforms has bumped their player base to the biggest it's ever been. Concurrently player base, so it's not like PC has waned enough that it was a problem. But so yeah, we were right. Deep Rock Galactic is a game, yo.
It's a game, yo. Nice.
I don't know that I've got much else in Newsland, really. It's I mean, like a Dragon Ishin put out a little 1-minute trailer of like, here's all the mini games you could expect. And there's a lot of returning ones, like, all the classic Japanese gambling games appear to be back. But so is ancient Japanese karaoke. And like cutting cannonballs in half of a katana, because of course. And the fishing game looked identical.
Because of course.
To how it's always been. So expect some of your favourites, I guess. That's all I got. Got anything else?
Have we any other news? Well, we talked about. Maybe we were talking about Google, weren't we? And their Stadia is completely shut down now.
Stadia is
the news. But I think we talked about that before. It's finally the death knell has sounded.
Bong.
Yeah. I think
what
that was
does
it.
Death knell sound like?
Probably bong.
Bongy, yeah, I would have thought.
How does one knell?
Does it sound different to other knells?
Is there a life knell? Or a dinner time knell?
You don't want to get that confused with the death knell.
No.
That's the trouble.
Bong. Oh, sweet pizza time. Oh no, Mum's dead.
Exactly like that.
It's a bit of a mood killer. I'm sure Domino's would cater a funeral.
I think Domino's caters anything, do we?
I mean,
could you hire just a pure Domino's team to just come and cook a bunch of pizza somewhere?
I mean, I guess they would just deliver. I mean,
yeah,
by the definition of cater, I suppose they would just deliver a whole smeg ton of pizza somewhere.
Yes, probably. Although maybe not. Maybe if you maybe there's a limit to how many you can order in a short period of time from a regular store.
I guess keeping them warm is tricky. Just have to have so many of those heat bags. Slight segue, but I don't know why that reminded me. When you first wake up in the morning and you do stupid stuff because you're not fully awake.
Okay,
right.
I had one this morning that I thought was quite funny. But by this, I mean the sort of thing where you make toast for breakfast and then for some reason put it in the fridge.
Okay.
I mean, that's not what I did. That's what Gnome's done. That was pretty funny.
Dump on her.
This morning, I just tried to put glasses on whilst I was wearing glasses, and I just sort of stood there for a little bit going, that was real dumb. The dumbest part of it was I had a moment where I was putting the other pair of glasses... Oh, my voice is going. I was putting the other pair of glasses on over the top of the other pair of glasses and then getting very confused about why they weren't, like, the physicality of them not sliding on where they're supposed to go. I was like, what the hell's going on? Why won't these go on? Like, oh, shit, there's something else in the way. Mornings. Good times. Also, side note, not at all related. I'm beginning to wonder if, like, modern... baby talk, right? Baby times. I fitted the car seats to the cars yesterday. I can't get out of my head that I can't help but wonder if, like, they're just extraordinarily poorly designed for cars. Like, because you can't put them in.
Car seats? Aren't they only designed for cars?
I mean, like, car seats for babies, right?
They're just...
Like, the sort of big old seats you put in. But then, like... You turn them around, because for newborns and like earlier, they're supposed to face backwards. In the car. Yeah. And but then you can't fit them in the back seat on most normal ass cars without having to push the passenger side seat quite a long way forward, so no one can actually sit in it.
Or don't they normally go in the front passenger seat?
I mean, in theory they can, but I can't help but feel like that's less safe. And also, you need to check whether your car has, like, the airbag off button.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's why that button exists.
I'm not sure my car does, but...
Probably does. You probably just never have actually known where it is because you never would need to know.
I know where it would be, I guess. Or where I think it would be, but, maybe I guess I've never pushed it. Anyway, side note.
But I mean, like...
They're too big.
You have a lot more space in the front than the back. In that specific way, like the overhang off the front of the seat rather than the back of the seat leaning backwards over it.
That is true. Yeah, so maybe I'm doing it wrong. I don't know. Parents send comments.
Can't say I have much experience with baby car seats.
Also, it seems like you need to put, like, your kids in them until a much, like, later age than I ever remember, like.
Yes, but that's because we grew up in the
80s. Yeah, that's what Gnome told me. She was like, well, yeah, because laws are different now. People are, we're more intelligent about this now. And I'm like, I don't know.
Other than that, we just strap them in with regular seatbelts when they're like 2. They'll be fine.
Maybe not 2, but
no,
like I don't know, sort of like 5 or 6-ish. I seem to think I was just in the back of a car.
Send them to work in the mill, down the mine. Yeah. Toughen them up.
Anyway, that's my little rant. I say I'm not going to be able to do kitchen bitch, and I'm going to have to do like baby wailing or something.
Baby
wave of babies.
A wave of babies.
Wave of babies. Okay, look forward to our new section coming up soon. Happy Salad Wave of Babies.
I don't want a wave of babies. I just want one. One's enough.
I mean, it's going to be a wave.
It's going to be a wave of something.
Oh, God.
Tsunami. Right. Should we do our regularly scheduled actual point of the podcast, which is what we play?
I guess.
Yeah. Let's start with you, Zeg. What you've been playing?
Well, I mean, I played some Derg. The Lunar Festival thing is happening. Get your rabbit hats.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that they did one of those.
Well, come on.
Have they done it every year? Have they done it every year?
They've done it last year and this year, I think. It's just another one of their seasonal events. Another random object to find in the cave which spawns a wave. Just like the mug and the... Oh, no, I guess the elf didn't spawn a wave. That was slightly more complicated.
You just had to shoot them. Wait, the mug spawned a wave when we had to find...
Don't you remember that? When you dig up the mug and a wave immediately spawns on you, on the mug.
Wave of babies.
But yeah, now it's just a rabbit statue that you dig up. So it's not actually any different from the mug. It's not like the elf.
Is there any cool stuff?
Not really. It's just that rabbit hat. That's pretty much it this time.
Okay.
I think. So it's not a particularly, you still get the double XP, the double season XP from the rabbit.
Yeah. Useful.
But that's about it.
Bunnies. That's Doug.
Yeah, that is pretty much Doug. Like I'm very near. I'm getting to the point where I'm getting to do the last promotions I need to get all my characters to gold. That thing that I said was going to take so goddamn long, and it has. But I'm actually getting to there.
Wow!
After all this time, although I think I might actually. I started trying to like even everyone's levels out. So I mean. That's also why I basically haven't played Gunner in ages, because he was the one that I soloed for ages, and he had already got to gold way ahead of the rest of them. And then I was like, and then my scout was higher than the other two, because that was the class I played with you mostly.
Yeah.
But then I was like, well, I'll just even them all out. So I did that, but then I realised that that's not actually a good idea, because if they all reach 25 at the same time, then you don't have anyone to play the promotion assignments with, because they don't get XP if you...
Yeah, sure.
You need someone who can still get XP.
Just for max efficiency.
Yeah. So I was like, maybe I don't need to actually get everyone to be like super close in level. Maybe I should concentrate on one of these.
They need to be a couple levels off, right? Because those promotion ones don't take long.
Well, and the last couple of levels take like more XP.
Yeah.
Or it feels like, anyway. 24 and 25 always seem to take forever. And also, I've been slightly playing with some different weapons again, I guess. I was watching a video of like someone playing full random, where it's just like use a random. Someone's made like a Google spreadsheet that when you load the page, it randomizes the loadout. Like it lists the gun loadouts, like what upgrades you pick. It has those listed as like a set of tables, and then every time you load the spreadsheet, it just randomizes that. So you can just like open this spreadsheet and it will just make a completely random build.
I mean, that legitimately sounds like a great way to play, actually.
Well,
I mean, assuming
except you're going to get some shitters.
Well, yeah, but that'll be fun at least. I quite like the idea. Like, it's the standard thing, isn't it, with like games like this, where it's like introducing more random actually makes the game more interesting.
Yeah, kind of.
It doesn't matter what you do, just introduce more random.
So there's that.
Yeah, I'd be happy. Does that thing like require you to have unlocked everything as well, like all of the overclocks and things like that, or can you like flag on? It's like I've got this.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't actually look at the actual spreadsheet. I only saw how they were using it in this video, and obviously they had the overclocks. But I think you could probably just disregard the overclocks because it will still do all the other upgrades, and because it doesn't care about synergy or anything, so it wouldn't even matter if you didn't have the overclock.
Pretty funny.
Yes, so I've been using some slightly different weapons anyway. Like because I've been playing Driller again for the longest time. The only weapons I used on Driller was the flamethrower and the microwave gun, purely because of the combo potential. Where like you set things on fire with the flamethrower and then use the microwave gun to trigger the heat shock thing, and it does massive damage. But then I was like, well, actually, I could do that with the cryo gun and the plasma pistol, because the plasma pistol has upgrades to make the shots do fire damage. So you can just trigger it that way instead, freeze things and then hit them with the fire shot. And that also does massive damage, so I've been messing around with that. And I just haven't used the plasma gun virtually ever, because I just didn't like it when I first used it. It didn't seem like... Because I was...
Like the one that you don't need to reload?
Yeah. But like...
With the fan that you can stick your finger in?
No, that's the scout one.
That's the plasma rifle.
That's the plasma rifle. But like, when I first got it, I preferred the regular pistol, which is weird because apparently everyone hates that regular pistol. But I massively preferred it. But then now that I've changed it so that it does fire damage, and it basically ignores the fact that you can do a charge shot. Like, the charge shots that in this build is pretty useless, so you just don't do it. But because the way I've set it up, the normal shots do way more damage because it's sacrificing the charge shot, essentially.
I see. Yeah.
So they do tons of damage, and a lot of that damage is fire damage, so it just triggers the heat shot pretty much on just one shot will do it.
I think that's one of the things where I've not leaned into in Derg is the elemental. Because it just seems it always just feels so ineffective to me.
Well, I mean,
Like, I'd rather just shoot things in the face. Like, it seems like dealing with the actual
there's only
mechanics just doesn't actually yield results.
I mean, there's only a few cases where it like makes much difference because, like, with Driller, you have the temperature shock, and that's the main thing. And I mean, I guess freezing is useful, and setting things on fire is useful, I guess. But then, like, the only other main one is electric. Like, Scout and Engineer both have a lot of electric stuff, which is good for just slowing down enemies because the electric effect just slows them. And then obviously there's just Stun, which you could kind of call, it's not really an element, but it's an effect. That's useful. And then really the only other one that matters at all is the corrosive sludge on the Driller's sludge gun, but that's only one thing that does that, really.
Right, yeah.
There's not really any other important ones apart from that. There's a couple of extra things that occasionally do, like added explosive damage or added corrosive damage.
Like, maybe other than like fire and freeze, which have very obvious like visual effects. The others, I'm not sure, are quite so pronounced.
Well, I mean, electricity kind of is, but
I don't know if I've hugely ever noticed it.
It's probably because you haven't used it that much.
No, but I'm sure you've used like electro stuff when you must have done, like, and I've not noticed any obvious like zappy critters.
You can hear it. It makes a zappy noise quite a lot if you have a lot of them in the vicinity.
Usually quite a lot going on though.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, like electricity is like, or it's not really in the traditional way of like elemental damage in Derg, because it's like once you get to things like electricity, it's more just like a status effect rather than a damage source. It is just like a slow, essentially. I think it does still do damage, like, and it's classed as electric damage. But the thing about damage in Derg is like you wouldn't really ever know unless you got the mod that puts up damage numbers like Borderlands.
Oh, right. That could be useful.
But I don't think that mod even distinguishes damage type either. I think it just tells you the straight numbers, and it doesn't distinguish like...
So it's not like popping up in different colours.
Colours like Borderlands does. Because like when you have like... There's that upgrade for the grenade launcher on Engineer where it's like 50% of the damage becomes fire damage.
Right.
And it's like you never really know apart from it sets stuff on fire. And then if there are enemies that are weak to fire, which you also wouldn't know unless you looked it up in the miner's manual to see which enemies are weak to what.
Right. Okay, that was good. I mean, you already answered the question I was going to ask. It's like I wouldn't know. I've never known like what the critters or the glyphids like are weak to what. Like that just doesn't cross my mind.
Well, yeah,
thing.
That's like you have to look at the miner's manual and actually see. That's how you know like oppressors are weak to melee and robots are weak to melee, and robots are weak to fire. Although I guess that's the other thing. It's like even then, I say robots are weak to fire, but I'm not actually sure they're weak to fire. It's if they catch on fire, they just instantly die.
Oh.
So it's like, it's not necessarily that they take more damage from fire, it's just that like if they trigger the heat level to go to the on fire stage, then they just die.
Yeah, okay. Interesting.
But even then, you've got like all these other situations where like you can say something's weak to fire, but then it's not weak in the same way or at the same level. Like if you have the Nemesis, the big enemy robot, that has the exact same effect where it's like if you set it on fire, it instantly dies, but it just doesn't set on fire very easily. So it's like it has that same weakness, but it doesn't take as much heat damage, I guess you could say.
I feel like they've toned down the amount of robot action.
Well, yes, they did.
A lot
at the end of season 2, when the robot season ended.
I know, but like you kind of want everything to still hang about.
I mean, it is all still there. It's just less common.
It's just super less common. Do you reckon we'll get a plague gun? Like that becomes a damage effect you can apply.
I mean, they already kind of have that with like neurotoxin or whatever. That's kind of the same thing.
I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah, that's another one of those damage types that's not used in very many things.
And I suppose pheromones as a state as well.
Yeah, I mean, yes, neurotoxin is just regular damage over time, and the only places
it's a poison.
Yes, the only places. Well, no, there's actually poison as well, though. Of course.
Wait, what? Wait, oh, okay.
Because Praetorians do poison damage, obviously. And I think there are some guns that can do poison damage. You'd think the sludge pump would, but that does corrosive damage, which is distinct as well. But yeah, the neurotoxin is a separate thing. And I think that the only places you get that is the driller has neurotoxin grenades, which nobody uses because they're not as good as his other grenades. And there's that one overclock for the gunner's autocannon that makes it do neurotoxin in the explosion radius. And those are the only two places that I think I remember neurotoxin being.
So weird. Why have they got so many? Like, why is neurotoxin and poison discrete? And what? Like, why? Just why? Do they just not want them to stack that easily if two characters were using poison damage? Like, they needed to be building up different stacks on it.
Well, I mean, maybe that is the point. Maybe it's better because different effects can stack rather than like if you have.
But you can't both contribute to getting them into like whatever the poisoned or on fire is or whatever.
Yeah, I guess. But like, there are certain situations where like. Because electricity slows and neurotoxin slows, and there's a few direct slows, and those all contribute individually. Like if you've got a bulk detonator and you're hitting it with electricity and neurotoxin and like the engineer's smart rifle neuro lasso that just slows things, you basically make them stationary because the slow effects just stack. If you've got these different sources of slow.
Weird. Maybe it's more apparent if you're playing in a 4-man crew.
Well, yeah, probably. And then, obviously the only ones that matter are like ice and fire. Because if you're then if you're in a 4-man crew, you actually have to kind of worry about that. Because if you're deliberately going for temperature shock and you've got one guy using a flamethrower and one guy using a cryo cannon, and they're constantly fighting over whether their things are on fire or frozen, it's going to be slightly a problem. You have to get them all the way to being fire or frozen before you hit them with the arm.
They need to be. I'm on the left, you're on the right.
Yeah.
And swap.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I've been using this cryo cannon set up on my driller for a while. I think I might need to look. It's a really old setup, like the actual cryo cannon. I redid the plasma rifle to do the fire damage, but the actual cryo cannon setup I haven't looked at for ages, and I probably should. But it's so good. It's like I feel like it can't possibly get better, but maybe it can because it freezes stuff so fast. And I don't think it's even set up for maximum freeze because I prefer like it to be able to fire instantly. So I think you have to sacrifice some level of freeze capability to be able to fire instantly. It's kind of like the minigun.
It has a warm up.
Yeah, it has a warm up.
Spin up time.
I don't know. It's insanely effective, at least at like hazard 3 and 4. Maybe it gets less effective at 5.
I guess that's some deep rock Galactic.
Yep.
Deep rock mechanic.
And then I mostly just played more Captain of Industry.
Have you ranked up? Are you still a captain?
No, you're always still a captain.
You haven't made it to like Commodore of Industry.
I mean, that would kind of make sense. I mean, I guess the difficulty levels are named like that. Like the mid difficulty level is captain, and like the easy difficulty is called sailor. I don't remember what the top one is.
I'm a sailor of Industry. Seaman of Industry.
Yep, clearly.
Able seaman of Industry.
But yes.
Oh man, I'm like, what? How old am I? I'm like 38 years old or whatever. That shouldn't make me laugh that much.
Seaman.
37.
But yeah, I mostly just played a bunch of that, and now I'm gradually figuring out like the things that I like about it more or less. So here comes the typical podcast moment of me complaining about things.
Woo.
I think I've determined 2 sort of big problems I have with it, which are very specific in ways that might only be specific to me. Even I don't know. The first problem is like the maps, because they're not randomly generated; they're like handmade, and so part of the problem is there's just not enough of them. Like there's only like 7. Which, I mean, I've only actually played 3 of them, so you'd think that wouldn't be a problem. But the problem is that, like, half of them are sort of designed as challenge maps. So they're not, they're, like, very specifically set up in a weird way to make it awkward. And the non-challenge maps, I feel like they haven't found the correct size. Like the one that I've played the most, I'd say the map is like too big, and then the one that I played first, it's almost too small. It's like I need a medium size.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Because
in summary, this game would really benefit from a terrain gen.
Well, I was thinking that, yeah, it would have to be quite a complicated terrain gen because of the way it like generates the mountains of ores and stuff.
Or would it work with just like if they did like a dirt floor on it and like had tile sets?
Tiles, yeah, maybe. But then
stitched together.
Well, yeah, mate. But that might lead to the islands being too big again. That's the trouble. Because you need quite a lot of these resources, which is why these mountains of resources are quite large. Like on the map that I've been playing the most, the map that I would say is too big, I'm sort of in the late game, I guess, just getting to the late game now. And I'm like sort of starting to get towards the end of the original like iron and copper deposits. I've basically mined down the mountains to ground level, and now there's like the bit that's underground, which is probably about as much again, so I'm not really that close to the end, except it's just more inconvenient, because it's like now I'm having to like build retaining walls and shit to actually dig down into that deposit, which is expending resources to get resources. But then like the secondary deposits of iron and copper are way up the other end of the island, and it's so far away. But like, so you can just build trucks, obviously, because this game has that truck-based logistics system. Build another truck.
Yep, build another truck.
So you can do that, I guess, but then you're going to expend a shit ton of diesel ferrying that shit on the whole length of this island. So what I've done at the moment, because I've only just started like trying to open up that far into the island, mainly because I've also reached the tech level where I need gold, and the only deposit of gold is way up that other end. So I'm like, I need at least that. So all I've done so far is just build like one really long conveyor belt that I can just dump rock and dirt and gold on, and then it just gets filtered at the end near where my current base is. So I've just got this one massive long belt that runs the entire length of the island. It's like that's not really an interesting logistical problem. It's just like you either spend a whole bunch of diesel running trucks, or you just build a really long belt, which is like a one-time cost of parts.
There's no like requirement of combining them in some, and then like transport tycooning your way out of it. Or
well, I mean, in some ways you can do that, because like the way this belt system works is you have the mines which use the excavators and the trucks, and then they dump into containers, and then the containers go into the belt, and then at the other end I've got the sorting system that puts it into other containers, which then the other trucks at this end of the factory can take out from. So it does have like a storage element of like this in and out system, but it's not like super complicated or anything. And it's just like there's this whole massive expanse of the middle of this island that I'm probably never going to use for any reason. It's just pointless empty space. I mean, I have definitely sort of crammed my base into one end of this map in some ways. And sometimes when I've been designing these bits of factory, like when I redid the oil refinery, I was like, am I trying too hard to be space efficient? Like, I don't really need to really precisely layer these pipes on top of each other and have them all nicely like stacked and have them nicely laid out next to each other and all that stuff. I could just like space the buildings out a bit more and then just have the pipes next to each other instead of on top of each other. That'd probably be way less complicated to design. But like, that's just how you want it to look more than actually required.
Right. Yeah.
I guess it does technically save some construction resources to build things closer together. Like, you're not spending as much on building the pipes if you make it compact, I guess. But apart from that, it doesn't matter. And also, like, when I started to think about the whole concept of moving of the new iron deposit being way down the other end of the map, I was like, well, technically, the town that's at this end of the map doesn't use that much like mineral resources. It needs food, obviously, from the farms and water, and then it needs a few like furniture, I guess, is made partly of steel, so that's a little bit of iron. But comparatively to like what I'm mainly using iron for, which is making the actual construction components to make all the buildings, That doesn't need to be down this in the island. So theoretically, when I start mining that deposit, I can just move all the smelters and everything up there as well. And it wouldn't matter because there's no commute time simulated for the people working in these buildings. And you don't have to worry about power lines or anything. The power just gets there. So the fact that you can just move everything up the other end of the island, definitely, it's that's not actually a problem. I could easily do that. It would just cost me a small amount of resources in the deconstructing the buildings and not getting everything back in this game.
So do you think you're running up against that this perhaps is a little too simple for the sort of problem you're trying to solve? Like the power thing, would it be better if you had to then build the ways of getting the the materials to the locations and figuring out what I need in order to be able to build these pylons across this here mountain?
Well, not really though, because that would just be the same as building that really long conveyor belt. It's just it's a one-time cost and it's just an inconvenience of having to stockpile that many resources to build the thing.
Okay, all right, flip that around a bit. What if you had to actually power the belt in some way?
The belts are powered, but that's just, again, it just comes out of your mystery power grid that covers the whole island.
Oh, okay. What? And they are powered based on how much load they have? Or?
No, it's just how long they are.
See, that's the problem. I think it should be weight based or something. It's this belt has got to carry it's too heavy and it just stops. It's oh crap, I've got to feed it more power.
Well, I mean, technically, that is one of the things that has occasionally tripped me up in this game is the fact that the belts do use power, unlike every other factory game, basically.
Right.
Like Factory or Satisfactory or anything, they don't use any power. So the fact that the belts do use power does technically mean building that really long belt, I'm technically using extra power, which does mean I'm still using oil because my power plant is oil based. So would that balance against the cost of running trucks with diesel?
Yeah.
But then that's too complicated a maths to work out. You could work it out, but
out the spreadsheet.
It'd just be too much effort, I feel for the amount of savings even. And also I feel it's probably got to be way more efficient for belts than the trucks. Just on the general feeling of how much oil I'm using in the power plant versus how much diesel I'm making.
Yeah, maybe that's a long-term efficiency simply because of the iron costs. Or
yeah, well,
I mean, do you have to maintain trucks or belts?
Well, see, that's the other thing. Is there is a resource called maintenance, the way you have to build a maintenance building, and it basically just takes resources and then turns it into maintenance, which just is it's basically power again.
Maintonium.
Yeah, basically. But it's just like the power grid. It's just this mysterious resource that just gets consumed in buildings that that have a maintenance cost associated with them. And then there's 3 tiers of maintenance. So you've got the second tier when electronics start getting involved instead of just parts. So you have that. So there is this constant resource cost of just buildings existing. And trucks also require maintenance. But weirdly, belts don't actually require maintenance. They only require power.
Oh, what?
So you would have thought that would be the other cost balance of the really long belt.
Yeah. Surely you need a whole bunch of lubricants on the rollers for the belts.
I was kind of surprised when I looked at the belt. I was this only actually needs power. It doesn't actually need maintenance.
I mean, I guess they're not pipes. Do pipes need maintenance?
No, I don't think they do either.
Oh man,
I don't think pipes even need power. They're just completely free.
They haven't played Deep Rock.
Yeah, exactly.
Got to maintain those pipes.
Yep. But yeah, I don't know. That's just one of those situations where it's just it wouldn't even matter if it did require maintenance because that's not actually a puzzle at all. You just have the maintenance building that makes a certain amount of maintenance, and then if it's not making enough maintenance, you build another one of those buildings.
I love that. You must construct additional maintenance.
Yep. And I also built the Statue of Maintenance, which is basically the Statue of Liberty, except he's holding up a wrench, which has fire coming out of it for some reason.
I kind of want to know what the resource of maintenance looks like. If it was a physical entity, what would it actually? Would it just be wrenches?
Well, that is what the icon looks like.
A whole crate of wrenches that you just then pour over things.
I don't get maintained.
I don't think you want fire coming out of your wrench.
No, probably not.
It's probably not ideal.
But yeah, you can build the Statue of Maintenance, which consumes fuel gas to run the fire. But so long as it's running, you get a 4% discount to your global maintenance costs.
Oh, you have to run the statue. That's quite funny.
Like the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier.
Yeah.
Are there other wonders of the world?
No, that's the only one. I mean, I've also this game actually is in early access. I actually looked that up now to see whether it was, and it is. But yes, this is the only. I guess there's the rocket launch silo for the end of the game, but that's not really the same thing.
Classic. Gotta have a rocket.
Yes, you've got to have a rocket. how you know technology is
Done.
maximum.
Like, we're done, guys. We finished civilization in the 60s.
I mean, that is pretty much how even Civilization finishes, isn't it? The game.
Yeah.
You launch the rocket.
We launched the rocket.
It's a rocket to Alpha Centauri, though, not to the moon.
Yes.
Right? It's slightly more ambitious.
World as we know it is over. Enjoy our slow death.
Yep, pretty much. Enjoy the resources gradually running out as they do in these games. So that's the first problem that I've...
Happy times to be having babies.
Yeah. That's the first problem with this game is like the map size and the quantity of maps. That's, they'll probably just release more maps. And maybe there'll be some more medium-sized maps, more normal maps.
Mm.
Maybe a map generator if they feel like doing that.
Like you say, early access. I would have hoped they'd put a gen in there of some description.
Yeah.
It feels like it feels like it's a necessity for this sort of game.
Or just a map maker, I guess.
Yeah, that could be cool.
To let people make maps.
Yeah, so you can just pull them.
Put a Steam Workshop up.
Yeah, or a little bit like the even like this is the most random corollary ever. But like even Ultimate Chicken Horse had like an in-game like.
But that game whole is a map generator, though.
I mean, the whole game is generating your maps as you go. Yeah.
So then the other sort of problem that I've been coming across, or not really coming across, sort of figuring out, is I wanted to relate this to I think it was a GDC talk I saw ages ago, and I believe it was like Will Wright from Maxis talking about SimCity.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how like the worst possible thing that could happen in SimCity is for it to be balanced. Like you actually inherently need SimCity to be unbalanced, so there's always demand for something. So if you satisfy the residential demand, then there's got to be commercial demand. And then if there's commercial demand, you satisfy that, there's got to be industrial demand. So you're always looping around.
Yeah, you're doing some sort of cycle of juggling in order to still grow.
Yeah, you don't want... If everything was balanced, you wouldn't actually be able to play SimCity.
Yeah, you wouldn't need to do anything.
So that's kind of what I feel the problem with this game is, but not in the same way. It's that, like, it's too easy to get... It's too easy for you to make things balanced, and then that makes it more inconvenient to make them unbalanced. Like, if you get into a situation where you're like, well, I'm making enough food to feed this amount of people, and I need this amount of people to run all my factory buildings, and then that gets into a balanced state, then if you want to grow at all, you inherently have to build everything. Like, if you want more people, you need more food. And if you need more food, you need more industrial buildings. And if you need more industrial buildings, you need more people. So in order to expand at all, you have to be building everything simultaneously. You can't just, like, work on one bit very easily.
It's an interesting thought, isn't it? Because these factory games are all about the underlying numbers, right?
Yeah.
And they're all, for the most part, exposed to you, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, demand in at least the SimCity games, I don't know about the very last one, but through 4 at least, it's kind of this ethereal, like, population want, as opposed to actually being a number or anything. So of course the game could fudge that.
Well, yeah, I guess, but I mean, on a certain level, there would be numbers. Like I'm
sure there'll be rules to it, but
sure.
Like you can always be like, oh, this is too close to being 000.
I'll just give you something.
In a month's time, bump something.
Yes, I mean, that was probably part of that GDC talk. He was probably talking about how they deliberately make it not balanced.
Yeah, they probably let you balance it for a time.
Yeah.
And for a time, it was good.
But then, in Captain of Industry, I feel like it's like that situation where it's like decision paralysis, I guess, where you get to a point where in order to change anything, you have to change everything.
Right.
But then the more I've looked at that and thought about that problem, I feel like that might actually be a problem of the game not exposing enough numbers or not being specific about the numbers it does tell you. Because, like, when I felt like I was in that state, I was probably still making way more food than my people needed, so I probably could have just grown the population without worrying about more farms or whatever. But it's kind of, the game doesn't do a very good job of, like, telling you exactly, like, what your surplus is on food, especially, because there's a lot of sort of estimated numbers happening on the food level, especially if you're not using fertilizer, because then the fertility goes up and down naturally depending on what crop you're growing, and that messes with the estimated numbers and whatnot. But then, so farms will be like, you're making 5 potatoes per month out of this farm, or 5 units of potatoes. It's probably not 5 potatoes. 5 amounts of potatoes.
Tons of taters.
That's probably. But so it's like, this farm is making 5, and then you can look at the town, and it like, this town is consuming 6 or whatever. So it's like, oh shit, I better build another farm. And that works if you're only growing potatoes. But because this game is trying to be slightly realistic, it has like the concept of food groups. And if you're supplying crops that fill even the same food group, so if you supply more different types of food, the demand evens out over all of them. Okay, and it's also split by the food group. So if you're supplying like corn and potatoes, since they're in the same group, that they cannibalize each other's demand as well.
Yeah.
So those numbers quickly become much harder to estimate.
So people have no concept of taste then.
No, not really.
In this simulation.
But yeah, so, and I mean, it will still tell you, like, you're consuming 5 units of potatoes per month in this town, but that's dependent on all the other foods being available. So if you have, like, intermittent food sources, like at the moment I only have a very tiny supply of sausages, so you only occasionally get sausages.
Oh man, they'd be so good, sausages though.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you just love the sausage
Well,
festival?
you probably wouldn't actually out of these ones because they're made of like gross leftover chicken parts in this factory.
Oh, but then they taste like chicken nuggets. That'll be fine.
Probably. And they should have just made them nuggets, to be honest.
Yeah,
I don't think they should have been sausages.
Perhaps they didn't need to be chicken sausages.
But yeah, so I've got this very intermittent supply of sausages, which means if you look at the town while the sausages are there, the estimations are based on assuming sausages are always available.
See, now I just want a nugget festival. Like, how good would that be? I just go to the festival of nugs.
That probably exists.
Man. Bring it to Needham Market. They could be Needham Market.
A local nugget festival.
This is the Needham Market's thing, Nug Fest.
Oh, God. So yeah, I feel like the concept I had that I was getting stuck in this weird situation of things being too balanced might actually just be because the game isn't necessarily telling me strongly enough that it's not actually very well balanced.
Right, yeah. I mean, I was just sort of like pondering the SimCity thing a bit more there, because it is interesting, because like surely SimCity unbalances itself because of population, right? That's maybe without even an artificial like squidge on that graph to confuse you, like then like population, if it's balanced, presumably population begins to increase. They could rule
well,
and then because there's no concept of like supplying food or anything like that in SimCity, right?
Well, I mean,
so it's like they could just make pop go up, and if pop goes up, then all of a sudden, oh crap, we need residential, and we've built residential. Oh crap, now we need.
Well, it's not really linked to population, is it? It's just always because that's the way SimCity has always traditionally worked. Is you always start with residential demand, so presumably that one is the specifically fudged one.
Maybe,
like.
Yeah.
As that gets to 0, there's just going to be some residential demand, even if the other 2 are 0.
Yeah, but there must be like some element of pop to housing.
I think the pop is just a number. Like, I don't think there is. I don't think population actually exists. I think population is just a number that's representative of how many houses you have.
Okay.
Unless you're talking about SimCity 5, in which case when they tried to do their shitty like real simulation where every population was an agent and walked around the town, and then as I proved in my extensive bug finding forum thread, they can just get deleted. Then you don't have population any longer explicitly.
Do you reckon SimCity 5 or that style of game could be pulled off better now? Thanks,
well, yeah, probably.
Thanks to the technology that factory games have been
pulled off better then.
All right, but do you know what I mean? Like games like Factorio and Cat the Ministry and Oxygen Not Included have proved you can run these complex.
Well, I mean,
systems.
The problem with it wasn't. Well, I mean, I guess kind of. It could be better today because the problem with it is like. The thing that everyone complained about that game is the maps were tiny, and the maps were tiny as a function of the fact that they needed to run all these agents, and therefore they couldn't have a huge map full of billions of agents.
Yeah, it was a performance concern, yeah.
So, I mean, yes, technically it could be done better now, but that's not because AI programming in games has got better. It's because computers have got better.
Sure, but yours hasn't.
No.
These factory games run all right.
Well, yeah, but they run on like tiny simulations comparatively.
Yeah.
Even if you're considering the SimCity 5, like, I don't know, a couple of hundred agents, that's still way more than like the 30 duplicates in Oxygen Not Included.
Yes, you're saying.
On a certain
Well,
level.
it's not just them, though, is it?
It's all the other stuff.
Yeah, the mechanics of the gases and the mechanics of all the
but that's
I feel like it
different
must
from
be at the
agents,
state where there
though.
must be a comparable amount of stuff happening.
Well, yeah, a comparable amount, which is why those two games also exist and also both run on my computer to some extent.
Yeah.
It's just like, if you're comparing them at that level, then yes, they both do exist at the same time. If you want something better...
I mean, maybe Skylines 2 comes along and goes, like, look, you know what EA tried to do? We've done it and it works now.
Well, that would be nice, but I feel like they did good not doing that specifically.
Well, yeah, that was their niche, wasn't
they
it?
played the old school SimCity card where it's just like, we'll make it look good, but it doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
like the cars drive around, but at a certain point they'll just disappear.
Yeah, they capitalised on the fact that it was just an old school stat sim on top of...
I mean, Skylines did do a slightly more realistic simulation where, like, it does, especially with like the services and stuff. Their pathfinding does matter.
Oh, right, okay. Well,
so
that's cool.
When a hearse has to go and pick up dead people, and the dead people are generated in the buildings, and the hearse still has to be able to drive to the building, and if it gets stuck in traffic, then that gets delayed, and then it stinks up the place.
I guess that was always vaguely true of the. Was it true of the fire services getting to fires and things?
Well, I mean, the
older
emergencies
Sims?
are slightly different because that's not really. I guess I don't remember because in SimCity 4, when you deployed the fire trucks or whatever, they could get stuck in traffic, right? And then they just sit there forever, and then the buildings burn down.
Yeah,
but that's not the same as like simulating that. That's like a one-time simulation essentially, and it's not accounting for like traffic levels as much as just the traffic that already exists, which is what traffic would be accounting for. It's not doing fancy calculations based on how much traffic there is in this road. It's just like, are these car sprites here?
Or how much traffic like would leave a little path in the middle of the road?
If only.
Yeah,
that was one of the other just bringing up weird old things about SimCity 5. That was one of the other controversies about that, where it's just like, if you've got this advanced agent simulation, why the fuck don't people move out of the way for ambulances and fire trucks?
Yeah. We missed some tricks.
Or just make them phase through them. We don't really care. Just make these goddamn fire engines get to the fire.
Yeah. They just need to travel a bit slower through traffic, and like the sim is maintained at that point, right?
Yeah. That was just real dumb. And then Maxis died.
And then Maxis died. Yeah.
God damn it.
And they've done nothing with it since. So wait. Oh no, sorry, I'm getting confused with Firaxis. Carry on.
Yes.
In my head. Yeah. The XCOM guys.
So yeah, that's Captain Industry. That's basically all I played. It's also getting to the point where it's like, it's kind of getting slow. But that's again a question of like, am I just not expanding enough? Am I just not pushing it enough? Am I too content to sit in this stable state?
What, just be too dense, you mean?
Well, yeah, kind of. Because like I've looked at a few other like YouTube videos of people playing, and like then just looked at some of their late game videos to see how it goes. And it's like I'll see these people with like they've got like the maximum number of trucks you can have, because that's actually limited by like a tech you can unlock, where it's like 140 trucks or whatever, and they've maxed it out. And I'm like, I've never needed that many trucks. I've unlocked that stage in the tech tree, so I could have 140 trucks, and I've got like 50. It's just like, am I just playing this wrong? I don't know. But then again, I also feel like quite a lot of these videos I'm seeing are playing on the lower difficulties, where like resource costs are much lower.
Yeah, and building up a truck makes sense. That.
Yeah, like you can get away with you just if the fuel costs are half as much, you can build twice as many.
Yep. And I've got a slight bottle out of it. Blah 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 blah. I've got a bottleneck. Just build another truck.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm doing it right or not, but you know, it's still fine. It's still a good game, and it's still early access. So who knows what will change?
Room to improve. Commodore of Industry coming soon.
So that's the second game in the series.
Yep.
And then on Thursday, I tried to play Rocket League, but the servers were down.
Oh, were they?
Oh, no.
I think what had happened is they tried to do like a server patch as the first attempt to deal with the bot situation,
Okay.
and it fucked up the servers, of course.
Right.
So yeah, there was like 5 hours on Thursday where no one could join a game.
Huh. That's the first time that's happened.
Not the first time it's happened.
Okay.
Definitely not. So it's just had a long history of completely fucking up their updates.
I guess I've always missed that. Like,
It hasn't happened as much recently,
Yeah.
like since, well, almost since when Epic bought them, I guess. But they haven't done any kind of that kind of patches, because the one before that I remember was nearly as bad. Was when they did that. They did that patch that they said was about like the sound engine, and that somehow still fucked up the game.
Yeah, I do remember that actually. Yeah, and I do remember there's definitely been a few updates where, for some reason, things haven't died completely, but for a while, like matchmaking was like
Weird.
yeah,
Yeah.
take forever.
So yeah, that was weird, because it was like I hadn't played for a while. I was like, let's play, and it's like, nope, the server's down. Also, weirdly, this must be related to the servers, but when I logged in, my username was my Epic username. Like, it had pulled the username off the Epic account instead of off Steam, which like I wasn't sure it hadn't always done that, because I was like, why would I even notice that? But I did notice it, and I was like, so that's got to be different, right? And then once the servers were fixed, I logged back in. I was like, oh yeah, it's back to my Steam name. That must have been some element of the matchmaking server not polling correctly or whatever.
Random little extra. This was actually probably a couple of podcasts worth of time ago. Popped into Onrush.
Right.
And was pleasantly surprised to find the servers still running, because I thought that game was shutting down.
Yeah, they said, didn't they?
Yeah, maybe it just hasn't shut down yet, but like the servers are up, and it's like, well, I'm going to jump into multiplayer then. I was just going to play through more of the single player on PS4, because I haven't done much of that, because I played it all on Xbox originally when it was on Game Pass. It's no longer on Game Pass, unfortunately. So I jumped into that and had a good time. Onrush is a good game.
It's not too hard, even with like the hardcore people.
No, I mean, it's hard to call Onrush a skillful game, honestly.
Okay.
Like it's just a bit of a laugh.
Because there's been several times recently where I've thought about maybe like I could totally go for some Battlefield 4, but there's like, you don't want to play that game again, I don't think.
Yeah,
Against the super hardcore who are still playing that.
Still there, yeah. Or it's been hacked to all hell.
Well, maybe. I don't think I've ever heard of that.
I mean, didn't we come across hackers playing?
Well, I mean, everyone comes across hackers,
Yeah.
but that's like a different situation from it being super hacked. I think Battlefield 4 had hackers like almost immediately, right?
Yeah.
There was that time where
There's the big desert level, or the sort of desert like, with sort of an oil facility at one end, and there was, and I'm sure someone was just standing in one corner of the map with like an SMG or something somewhere, just headshotting everyone.
Yes, there was that time on that map with the radar dome where it's like that mountain where you start at the bottom and you go through the tunnels and you go up. That was another map where that happened, and it was like.
Oh, don't stop talking about Battlefield, because I'm now having like the what happened to Battlefield sort of like aneurysm.
Yep.
Aneurysm, yeah, again.
Because like Battlefield 3 and to a lesser extent 4. Okay, I wasn't so much into the actual battlefieldiness of them, you know what I mean, the classic Battlefield of them, but some of those like enclosed levels and the like, or the sort of assault style levels, rush mode, isn't it? It's called rush mode.
Yes.
Man, some of that was real good.
Yeah, well, sometimes.
I mean, some of it was real stupid, but it was good fun.
I mean, it was fine if it didn't get too bogged down, because Rush could easily turn into just a corridor of grenade launchers and no one goes anywhere.
I kind of enjoyed those though. Was and the one where you have to like you get through the first area, then, or is the first area jumping off, like doing a skydive or something like?
Probably.
Yeah, it's just cool.
Yes,
There's stuff about those games that's just cool. And then they stopped doing that. And then they made Battlefield 1, which was okay.
Yep.
And then, but not nearly as cool.
As we well know, clearly the number one problem that caused this whole failure was when they got rid of classes and squads, or changed classes and squads.
I mean, they were
So
still
you get rid of them immediately.
No,
but
they were still in 1, weren't they? That stuff.
I think 1 was the first time where they didn't have squads, but they put them in later. I think they got patched in.
You might be right. Yeah, you might be right.
Because everyone complained.
Yeah. Battlefield 1 should have been good, but it just wasn't as fun to play. I don't really understand why either. Like maybe it was just map design.
Yeah, I think it was like it had the weird trying to be not really World War One-ish.
It was sort of in the middle, wasn't it?
But then they had these like the sniper rifles were designed like old school sniper rifles, but functioned like modern sniper rifles, which made sniping way too powerful.
Yeah,
classic problem.
Yeah, and that was kind of my hope for the game, is that like the inaccuracy of weapons would actually get rid of some of that long range trouble that Battlefield is often. And it plagues all of the Battlefield games normally, like the long range play.
It's like I liked Battlefield freeze sniping because it was actually like you had to be good at it. You actually had ridiculous bullet drop off and shit. Where if you were sniping from like a mile away, you literally had to compensate for that.
But it was still possible. Yeah, and you had to be good to do it. Unlike, it's not like a Call of Duty.
And maybe wasn't quite so much of a fan of just like the ridiculous scope shine you had in Battlefield 3. Whereas like if you were looking at someone, they could just see this giant bright dot which gave away your position instantly.
That was kind of cool.
I mean, it was a balance issue, but like
it was kind of cool.
I feel like that was maybe a bit too overpowered. There should have been some kind of like
what if you're like
timing element to
or
it.
Not
like
into the sun, or
if you were facing a certain direction, that would have been cool to make it so you had to pick your spot more carefully.
You wouldn't. Yeah, I guess you wouldn't have known whether you were glinting or not. That's kind of the thing.
Yeah, you would have. I mean, they could have just made like a UI indicator or something to be like, if you're facing in this direction, the sun is reflecting. Or just make it like a timing based thing. Like if you're looking at someone for a certain amount of time, then the glint gets brighter.
Yeah.
So if you're taking a long time to line up your shot, it makes it more obvious.
21:43 EA, now's the time.
But that's what 2042 was meant to be.
Sort of. It didn't have hover tanks.
No.
Or orbital drops. Drop pods.
Yeah, drop pods.
All the drop pods.
So anyway, that was me. What were you into?
Not a huge amount.
I was wondering if you just started playing Yakuza because
I mean, I had. We talked. Did I talk about this last time? Yeah,
may have done slightly.
I'm sure I covered this.
More. I mean, like you'd committed fully to Yakuza.
Yeah, that's what I mean by I've not played much. I mean, I've played like nothing but Yakuza 5.
Okay.
So I reckon I'm probably getting to maybe a third of the way through that game.
Of the story or of like all this bullshit side stuff?
Oh, everything.
Okay.
Everything. I've done... So the game is, I believe, going to be split into 5 or 6 parts. And I've just finished part 2. So it's an interesting one, Yakuza 5, because at its core, it's very much more of the same. And it's not, and it's not throwing many curveballs at all in terms of like, they haven't reinvented anything this time round, at all really. It's very, very similar to Yakuza 4, but the interesting part is that they've taken a slight shift in their storytelling style this time round, and that it's way more of a slow burn. In the way that the story reveals itself compared to the previous ones. Normally there's some like big event right at the start of the game, and that's your drive-in. It's like, it's not really happening like that this time. Like the first 2 parts have all kind of happened in isolation of each other, and then are coming towards this central event. And they've been in 2 areas that aren't Kamurocho, which is the other interesting thing. Like they start like Kiryu's not in Tokyo. And the part 2 is Saejima, who was introduced in the last game, and neither of them are in Tokyo for various reasons. So like I've only briefly set foot in Kamurocho so far, and it's been in 2 brand new areas, or brand new areas of the game. And I'm wondering if that's going to happen for all the parts. Like so, part 3, 4, and 5, they're just going to be
Well, I mean, how much of the bullshit side stuff is reliant on a certain area of the map?
Well, presumably a bunch of it, right? Because you pick up the sub stories from meeting people often or visiting certain parts of the maps, right? A lot of the sub stories just straight up show up as question marks on the map, and you go visit those, and then something happens, or you speak to someone there, and something happens. There's a whole bunch of other secret stuff to find, like the Revelations. The Revelations make a return, like Korewa, but they're way more downplayed this time than they have been. Like I discovered a revelation with Saijima, and he hasn't even been told about Revelations, right? Like, normally every character gets introduced to this somehow, and they have some stupid way of... Like, I'm pretty sure in Yakuza 4, Saijima, like, whittled a wood carving of the revelation he just had. It's like... But now he just does it in the same way as Kiryu, which is quite disappointing. But the one revelation I've had with him was bonkers, but that's cool. Yeah, it's a strange, like, going back to the story stuff, it's a strange one, yeah, because it's a slow burn, but there is underneath it all, there is this, like, mystery that is, nobody knows, at this point in the story, nobody knows what the bloody hell is going on, but something is going on, and it's, like, the threads are starting to weave, and it's, that side is cool. Like, they like, you know, it's a crime drama at heart, I suppose, but then they're doing... Yeah, this is more straight-laced in that stuff. It's definitely less goofy, but it's... But the intrigue is there. So that's good. I'm liking that. I've only really, like, had one or two... I mean, okay, I fought a bear. I fought several bears.
Obviously.
With my fists.
They're asking for it, obviously.
Yeah. So, you know, there's that. And one of probably the goofiest side mission I've had so far was you come across a chef who has slipped in the ice. I forget where Fukuoka, I think they call it. I don't know if that's a real place or not, but I think it's up in the Hokkaido region of Japan.
Right.
So northern and snowy.
Long way from Tokyo.
Yeah. So yeah, there's this ramen delivery guy who has slipped in the ice and has hurt himself, but he must deliver the ramen to this guy who's like just standing there like one junction away and sort of waving like as if he's like not going to help this guy who's like properly injured or something, and he's just standing there going, "I want my ramen," and like so then obviously Saijima being a nice guy, or like all the protagonists being sort of nice guys. Sort of. Getting dragged into this stuff, and like, fine, I'll deliver it, but it's like it's so icy. So the game's like, oh, you've got to make sure to walk and not run, like, and so you don't spill this ramen. But watch out for other people struggling with the ice. And I thought that was just going to be like there's just be a crowd of people that were sort of potentially like having little wobbles and stuff like that. No, what happens is there's just a stream of dudes like sliding and spinning on their asses down the street towards you. Just sort of screaming as they slide by. It was hilarious. I loved it.
Okay,
it's the dumbest thing that's happened in the game so far by a long shot, and I wish there was more of that. I love it when the Yakuza series just goes completely off the rails and they don't give a monkeys about what's going on. That's where it's at its best, and there's just. This time it feels very slight on that front so far. Also, I don't really like playing as Saijima. I don't like his fighting style. But so I'm kind of glad I'm done with part 2. But yeah, I don't really know what more to say at this point. I'm like 25 hours into this thing. I guess like every character this time seems to have a big sub thing they can do. So like with Kiryu's, he's a taxi driver. So you do these driving missions that I think I talked about last time, about being a safe driver that's sort of like combined with a bit of street racing. And you can unlock audio from like other Sega racing games. So if you want to do your street racing to Daytona, you totally can.
Daytona. Oh, that's good. Let's go.
I mean, like it's surprising sometimes when you're wandering around these games what music they've picked as like ambient music. I just walked past a store and it's like, hang on a minute, that's Jev Rocket from Sonic Rush playing like in the background over there.
Not very ambient.
Well, just coming out of ambient in the sense that it's in the world, just coming out of a store.
What's the word for that? I've forgotten. Never mind.
The what, sorry?
Diegetic. Diegetic, sorry. Zach's got it right.
Okay.
It means, it's like in film when there's music, but it's actually coming from something in the world rather than being laid on top.
I see. So it was playing that. Like the theme from Sonic Rush Adventure has been like I've spotted in places.
Maybe that's slightly more appropriate.
Yeah.
Slightly.
It tends to come from like the little mini marts. That one. Some of the bars I think are playing Silver's theme from Sonic 06 of all things.
As a weird reference.
Yeah,
that's probably helpful for being less recognizable.
It's weird. And then there's other places where it's just straight up, this is the same music you used in the last game. Like the backing beat from when you're playing pool or darts in these bars is the same. And it's, this the stuff that's changed is fun, but the stuff that hasn't changed, you're just like, yeah, all right, okay, maybe this is getting a little stale now.
Sure.
After hundreds of hours of playing these games.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm still having a good time. I'm still locked in. I think I may have mentioned last time I've been spoilt as to like what one of the parts will be. You get to play as Haruka for a bit, which is new. And I had a pop-up saying, basically, you learn how to eat food.
Okay.
Like you meet this TV chef, and he's like, when you're eating food, think about the ingredients that go into it and focus on those. And suddenly that makes you a better eater, and you gain power from eating food and temporary buffs. But one of the little tidbits that came up on the pop-up of it there was like, and this in a dance battle, this affects Haruka like this, and I'm like, wait, what? Dance battles? It's like, I guess that makes sense because like Haruka's probably not going to be a combat-focused character, so they're going to get around it somehow. And it's like, I can't wait. I want to see how the game handles dance battles.
Awesome.
Probably like karaoke.
Probably. Well, button presses.
Yeah.
And for those that are curious, Club Sega this time features Virtua Fighter 2, which I think they had in the previous one as well, with its notoriously cheaty AI. So if you want to like do some retro Sega, that's there. But they've also got like I can never remember the full title of it, but they've got that like drum game or like a very stripped back version of the drum game. Like was it Taitsin no Tatsujin or something?
Yeah, one of those.
So, which I didn't realize was a Sega property, but that's in there as well. But again, it's just another rhythm game. It's just like playing the karaoke or whatever. So it's like you're not getting much in your like side arcade activity this time around. Although apparently there's like different patchy slot machines. If I could ever figure out how the bloody hell those work. So yeah, that's Yakuza. It's more Yakuza. But now it's more
just what you want.
But it's more segmented Yakuza this time, even more than 4 was. It feels more separated. But yeah, we'll see how it comes together. And yeah, listener beware. I think it's safe to be spoilerific on this one, right? It's like it's an old ass game, so
sure. It's not even a re-release.
Mashima's supposed to be dead.
It's the worst one.
Of course he's not dead.
Of course he's not.
Of course he's not dead.
Although he has pretended to be zombies before.
He has pretended to be a zombie before. That is true. He's pretended to be many things before.
Sure has.
Although in fairness, I don't know that any of that was actually in Yakuza 1. I think that's only in the Kiwami version. But still. Hype for Majima. So that's the Yakuza. And I haven't really been doing a whole bunch else. Like, Noam and I continue to play a bit of Pentiment here and there for the moments when Noam can stay awake and read the text.
Yeah,
I mean, it's intriguing. We've got to the point where we've got past Act 1.
Okay. Do you know of how many?
I think of 2, from what I know of the game. Some time has passed, and the ramifications of our actions are becoming apparent as we explore this new
The ramifications of your inaction.
or our inactions, or our mistakes,
Right.
or inaccuracies, shall we say, in the first act, or inability to pass a single voice check. Compensate. Everyone just likes us into like a medium amount, I think, in this game, which is not enough to pass like any checks. And it's all about people liking you. These checks, like it's never about you being right or anything like that, which is kind of frustrating. Because it's like, even if you're like defending your case because you know you're right in this case, it's not going to get you very far with people.
No.
So yeah, it's it continues to be good. I don't really have much more to add to that. And I guess all the other stuff is like I've still been mucking around with my Sinden quite a bit, getting my light gunnage on. What were some highlights? It's like, I've been getting a bit better at Virtua Cop 2. That game's a classic. Still plays real good. I actually got Virtua Cop 3 to run, which I was surprised was possible. So the Sega Chihiro, which was the successor to their, the successor to their Naomi hardcut arcade boards. I didn't really realize this, but it's basically an original Xbox. The Naomi board was basically a Dreamcast, but I didn't realize the Chihiro was basically an original Xbox. So you can emulate Chihiro in an Xbox emulator if you have like some modified ROMs. So you can get hold of the Virtua Cop 3 ROM modified to run as an Xbox ROM in the emulator CXBXR, and it's not perfect emulation. There's definitely some moments where all you can see is a black screen. And in fairness, some of the funnier moments are like it's clearly doing some sort of frame buffer effect over the screen while these black screens are on, but it's not enough to obscure the UI. So fortunately, most of the time you can still see the big ass targeting reticle to be like shoot here, and it's like, okay, I don't know what I'm shooting at, but I'll shoot the reticle, and it'll be fine. So yeah, Virtua Cop 3 is an interesting one because I used to play it like when I worked at Mega Bowl in Southampton. It used to be one of the arcade machines they had there, and it used to be sort of like an after shift ritual of ours to have a round of Virtua Cop.
Play a bit of Virtua Cop, yeah.
Yeah, do a bit of that. Do a bit of Ghost Squad if we fancied it. Sega gun games. do run the gamut while we're there. And Virtua Cop 3 is interesting because it follows the same sort of pattern as the previous ones in that you can, big ass reticles appear on screen, and if they reach 0, then you get shot and you lose a life. Same sort of deal. The same sort of weirdly zooming camera eyes your guys seem to have. And but the difference this time is you're given a pedal, like Time Crisis, but instead of hiding, it slows down time. So you can step on this pedal to
bullet time it.
Yeah,
okay.
Basically. So if anyone does shoot at you or you time it just right, the bullet actually becomes visible and you can shoot it out of the air, which is pretty cool. And there's spots in the game where a whole bunch of people appear at once, and it sort of makes a loud beeping noise, suggesting you need to probably go into bullet time right now to deal with these guys. It's going to be real hard if you don't. And it's an interesting mechanic because they lean into it at times where it's like. Then they don't always prompt you about it, but it's like if you kind of know, this enemy's going to be a bit tricky, or he's going to throw lots of axes at me at the same time, I can use a brief amount of bullet time to make sure I deal with those okay, and then wail on the boss. It's interesting because it just plays that little bit differently to pretty much any other light gun game out there. And it's neat. It's like it. Yeah, holds. I've got a soft spot for Virtua Cop 3. It's a good one. So yeah, I'm glad that works, albeit not perfectly, but like hopefully that'll improve over time. It's still playable. So I've been enjoying that. I've been dipping into my old classics, like playing some more Point Blank and stuff like that. But I dipped into this thing called 0 Point.
Right, 0 Point.
Which is a knockoff of Point Blank.
Oh,
but it's not a good knockoff. Like clearly, a lot of effort has gone into it because it's got all like their own animations and stuff. But they've sort of lent into this really weird if you think of like Point Blank, they kind of like when everything has got this kind of rough around the edges, like cartoony sprite look to it for the most part, and
sure.
but quite well made sprite art. And it's like for 0 Point and its sequel 0.2, they've kind of lent into using pre-rendered 3D graphics as sprites, and it looks awful. Like it's got but also it does it, but it does everything in the same way that like Point Blank does. Like the level setups are the same. It's these set of like micro stages, like a little shooting game with a little target you have to beat in order to not lose a life and carry on. It's the same game, and the first game, the first 0 Point is definitely cribbing way more than the second one. The second one they decided to go off and do their own sort of style, but it sucks. In the second game, also introduces levels where you have to reload, which is weird for a Point Blank style game, but okay, why not? Try and introduce your own spin. They're not very good. That's what I was going to say. They're not very good. They look like ass, and they don't play great, and they sound like ass as well. Just go play Point Blank. Like either the arcade version or the PlayStation version. Both are good, as it turns out. I've been playing both. So there's that. I played. Did I talk about Area 51 last time? Do you remember the old Atari light gun game? It was
I don't think so.
So Area 51 was the one where it was like full motion video kind of thing. Like the entire game, none of it was actually being rendered in real time. They had like a pre-made video sequence playing in the background, but like these zombie military guys would appear in like they would be sort of like mocapped, or not mocapped, but yeah, like a bit like Mortal Kombat, I guess. It's got that Mortal Kombat-y look to it. They filmed people and like animated entering the scenes and sort of put them into this video in mostly convincing ways. And then it's a light gun game, but it's like it was. I remember it being weirdly popular. Like you'd see Area 51 games like all over the place, and I did a bit of research on it, and like for a time, it apparently like saved Atari from like one of their many bankruptcies, I guess. Like it got them. It did well enough to get them out of it. Well enough that they then made a follow up called Maximum Force, and a few home console versions of it. I think there was a PlayStation version as well. So I've been playing that, and I don't understand why it was popular. It's like it's not a great. It's an okay shooter, but it's not great. Like it's the zombies. Like when they shoot at you, they appear and they sort of like they sort of start shooting immediately. But you can't. They never make any noise, which is the weird thing. Like they're just sort of like standing there doing this animation, like or without any sound. There's just this like weird like lens flare coming off the tip of their gun in a sort of reddy pinky fashion. And I guess if they're on screen for too long in that state, that counts as you getting hurt. And it's just weird that they don't make noise. It makes the whole thing a very strange feeling experience, which maybe isn't a problem in an actual arcade, I guess. But if you're playing it at home where you can hear that there's nothing to hear, it's weird.
Right.
It's just weird.
Yeah.
Assuming it's working right.
Assuming it's working right. Yeah, of course, because this is all emulated. And it's also you have to go for a few more hoops to get this to work than other ones, because all that video is stored on you need to get hold of the video files for the game separately from the actual ROM that runs it. And in mainland, that's called getting hold of a CHD, which I love, stands for continuous hunk of data. That's great.
Awesome. So hunky.
So once you got hold of those files, which are big, actually, they're like, because they mimic what the old hard disk in like a late 90s arcade machine. They mimic what those were like, and they're like 500 megabytes of like of hard disk, which is, that's quite a lot for the time. Just running this video. And you got to make sure you get hold of those and get them in the right place, and then MAME will figure out how to use them. And then you got to jump through the normal hoops of getting a MAME gun game to function. And then it all works, and it's all right. But it's Area 51, so it's not that good. I just don't understand its popularity. That's the thing. So there was that. What else have I been playing with? I've been mucking around with of interest. I tried some. These will be better explained like in video form, probably. But I tried playing a couple of Sega's fixed point games, like where I guess mounted guns, I suppose, instead of like traditional light guns. So you had like a big old plastic thing on a pivot, I guess, is the best way to describe them. So the first Jurassic Park gun game they did was like that.
You mean like Gunblade or as well?
Yeah, Gunblade fits into that category. I haven't played Gunblade yet. It's available on the Model 2 emulator, but I've not given that a go yet. But yeah, I think there was this phase where like they made a few of these. I'm going to call them rail shooters. But that's, I don't mean like the just standard generic term. It's an on-rail shooter, because I guess you could describe every light gun game ever as an on-rail shooter. But these are like almost literally on rails. You're always moving. You're like in a car or in a cart, traveling, and there's things to shoot at. Like you just hold down the button and you shoot at the things and hope you don't get hurt too much that you die. And like those are they're just. I don't know if there's any way to play those well. Do you know what I mean? They just feel like stuff is happening around you, and you can perhaps live a little longer, but you're going to die eventually because there's too much to actually fend off completely.
Right, yeah.
The only thing that's sort of like noteworthy about it is that, you know, from a technology standpoint, like Jurassic Park's pretty cool because it's not actually 3D in the like 3D sense. It's using sort of like a lot of scaled sprites to simulate the effect. I guess like how games like Radmobile and things did it in the arcade as well, using Sega's tech. And the effect is pretty good a lot of the time. Like you imagine, like in Jurassic Park, where they go over the plains and there's all those like little things running at you. The fast dinos.
Yeah.
And now imagine they're coming at you, you know, and you actually got to shoot them all, and you get a pretty good impression of like what's going on, and it doesn't look bad. Like they've somehow managed to mimic that like glade effect. Just by scaling green blocks of sprite, and it's neat. And there are certain spots where you go through like tunnels of foliage and things like that, and it's just all done with scaling sprite work, and it's pretty cool looking. It's a good
impressive.
it's a good look back at like what they could do with nothing but sprites before Sega started moving into proper 3D. Yeah, it was neat. So there was that, and there's Rail Chase. That's a similar thing that's also made like with that sort of tech. But I tried Rail Chase 2, and I want to just talk about this because this is not a good game, but they decided to make a sequel to this sort of thing, and they did this when they had 3D capabilities at this point. So it's based on the Model 2. Which is the same board that was running Virtua Cop and things like that. So it's another one of these constantly, but you're literally in Rail Chase. You're literally like, I think it's like in the aftermath if you've just done some Indiana Jones type shit, and you're like and this is just an enormous escape sequence. You're like in a minecart on rails, and it's obviously ludicrous because there are times where the minecart comes off the track, so it's just somehow still okay and like drifts on the tops of buildings and things. It's real stupid. But my favorite thing about the game is that I haven't quite figured out what there's this one vocal sample that's part of the music that plays when you like complete a section or something or complete a stage, and I can't work out what they say. Like. So it does it, and to me, it sounds like there's just this like 3 or 4 lady backing singers just going bitches, and I just can't work out what they're supposed to be saying. Like,
right?
Like, are they like we're doing well? So it's like they're going riches, or is it like just a really weird pronunciation of Rail Chase? So it's like Rail Chase, but Rail Chase, bitches. I don't know.
Bitches.
But it did make me laugh every time it happened. It's just like, yes, I did a thing, bitches.
Exactly what you want.
It's real stupid. And I think that's my adventures in light gunning.
In light gun games, yeah.
I've still got plenty more to cover. I think Zach's on me play a bit of Lethal Enforcers. Like, that was vintage. But not a lot to really talk about there. I tried playing House of the Dead 1, of all things, because you can run that on the Model 2 as well. That game's hard. And quite cheap in places. Like, the camera will just swing around and there's a guy already attacking you, and you have like a frame or two to get a shot on him.
To react.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
That's
no fun.
That's a tough game, but it's more tonally consistent than House of the Dead 2, let's put it that way. And the voice acting is better. Like,
somehow.
Wow.
I don't actually have much exposure to House of the Dead 1, so this is all kind of new to me, actually. So I've always been more of a 2 player. So yeah, I was actually surprised when people spoke and it wasn't just in the weirdest possible accent.
Completely not.
Yeah. Bit disappointed.
Well, yeah, it's an upgrade, isn't it, to have it be like the gameplay's better and the voice acting's worse. It's perfect. In 2, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're meeting G over there. And as you see, like, G like, clearly injured on the floor, and he's just like, take this, or something, go, you must help. And then you just walk away and go, please be safe. And it's like, he's not safe. He's in this zombie apocalypse, already injured.
No.
That's in, like, the opening minute of the game. It's great. That's going to do it.
Light gun games, yeah. What have I done? I think I played a little bit more God of War. I was wondering. I mean, I've got to the elf realm of Alfheim, which was in the original game, but like it's obviously a new environment this time around. But it's like it's so beautiful. That's the thing. It's like I'm starting to think. Like I wonder because like how do we judge games these days? Because like there's so much care and artwork and attention put into the environments that like, because the thing about this is like, obviously the gameplay's good, but it's the same, like pretty much. I mean, I've yet, I suppose I haven't gone far enough to do, the point was that like this time around, you don't have repeating assets and fights. It's kind of like everything's unique and original, like every boss fight and stuff, which is cool, obviously. But like,
but sure, there must be a whole bunch of like minion encounters that are.
Oh yeah. There's tons, and yeah, it's newly balanced and everything. But broad, I mean, the biggest improvement of gameplay is the fact that it's double the frame rate, right? Not anything to do.
Sure, because you're playing on PS5, right?
Exactly, but like it's amazing. It's so beautiful, all the environments and everything. And it's like, at what point are we judging? Is it like, are we judging these things not on what of a game they are, and on like all the incredible, basically artwork that's gone into. Yeah, and the story part of it. I suppose it's sort of been an age-old debate or whatever, but like this one really hasn't. The gameplay was pretty much done last time, so this time it's all that it is like the judging the new story, which is good, and basically it's just looks, it's just it's not that it looks incredible, it's that which it does. It's that the places that you go have been crafted with this.
Sure. I think it's a valid debate, right? Because I think we were starting to have this sort of conversation. Well, I say we were probably already having this conversation back when things like Uncharted and stuff were coming out.
Yeah.
Right? Because Uncharted 1, like at the time, was a bit of a looker, right? It was a sort of an early showcase for PS3, stuff, when you knew what you were doing with the hardware. Which not many people did at the early days of the PS3. But like, if we're being totally honest, it's not the greatest shooter in the world. And it's,
no, definitely not.
I'm sure they made improvements in Uncharted 2 and 3, but like neither of them. I was never 100% certain that they played brilliantly. Really,
It obviously plays a bit better. But
yeah, that's what I mean. But
play.
Like in the broader landscape of gaming at that time, I think we spoke about it on this very podcast. I don't know that we were totally convinced that they played.
I mean, the magical thing about those games is, especially 2, is like it plays smoothly during a crazy action set piece.
Yeah.
That was what was cool about it. Like the actual, if it's just like the shooting in environments, then no, it's not that good. And unfortunately, and it was the case in 2, that gets highlighted towards the end of the game, where you get the like, and it's I think it's the same in all the Uncharted's. Like it starts to get hardest, obviously, towards the end, and that's when you start. But in 2, like spoilers, but you get like aliens or whatever, don't you? And
the first 2 Uncharted's, you get like you get
whatever they are,
other thing happening.
Yeah, and it's like that's not so good. But what the cool part and the innovative part of the gameplay, which I don't know if is even matched today in many other games, is the way that you could still have smooth control of the player even when like the building is collapsing.
Yeah. And they would like tune the scenes so it would like the camera would be facing just the right way, but it wouldn't be unplayable whilst you were doing that. It was a very well crafted thing. Don't get me wrong, but it's like as a game should it have been. The conversation was beginning. Like as a game, should have been coming up as high. And I felt that most strongly with maybe the first Last of Us, because what again, PS3 era, like absolute showcase for what that console was capable of. End of the PS3's lifespan, admittedly, but like still, it was a fantastic, an amazing looking thing, and an amazing bit of storytelling. But the actual game, not so into it. Like especially with the first one. Like I was a bit more into the second one, but like. And less so the story in the second one.
Yeah, conversely.
Yeah, so it's like it's what it gets a whole bunch of praise like for the visuals and for the storytelling. Like, don't you think that should lose maybe a couple of knocks for not actually being a particularly great playing game? Or maybe I was in the minority there. Like, I don't know. And then you get something like Spider-Man and God of War, which are firing on all cylinders, and it's like. I don't know. It's hard to put a foot wrong, really. They're both amazing games, and if God of War 2 is just more of that, then how do you vote it down? Is there any?
Oh, I'm not. There's no. I've not got any I'm just saying, like, it's not moving anything forward there, really.
Yeah.
But
should it take a knock for not moving the needle?
For not moving things forward, but it's just so.
But if it's still so good, like compared to everything else, like how do you?
Yeah. And it's like, but it's not unnecessary because like the previous game exists. It's not like, you could just play the previous game, because it's got all this story and environments and enemies and stuff, I suppose enemies is a bit different, but that is new gameplay. But,
do you think they're using PS5, or is it just the doubling of the frame rate that you think they're sort of getting for free?
I mean, the fidelity is, I mean, I don't know, because I'm not comparing apples to apples now, because I played God of War on a PS4 Pro on my monitor, and this time I'm on a PS5 on a 4K OLED TV, so it's quite different.
Sure. So you weren't playing like at 4K?
No, I suppose I had the down. It was downsampled to 1440p, I suppose.
Oh right, well that's still pretty good. Yeah.
Well, I had a 1440p monitor when I played.
Yeah.
And I was looking, and I was right up next to it, right? Obviously, because it was a monitor. I was playing it at my desk.
Yeah, so you probably wouldn't have been losing much. You might have. Yeah.
No. So hard to say, but I mean, it looks. I mean, it's kind of more PS5-y than I kind of expected. Like, I think it is rather. I suppose it's a weird world, isn't it? Because now they make things that to be scalable back, but it's hard to. I don't know what it would look like on the PS4 Pro, or how different it would look to the original game. But I don't know. From what I can tell, that it's. I don't know if things are plateauing, but I don't know what a game going all out on the PS5 at 30 frames per second even looks like. Like what? You know what I mean? Like what's the
I guess we have to see what Quantic Dream come up with this Star Wars-y thing.
Yeah, I doubt that's even going to come out, that game.
You reckon?
No, I think that might be vaporware.
Come to pick it in the league when it comes out.
yeah, I might do. Yeah, I suppose we get to see. I mean, it'll be years, but yeah, eventually we will get a Naughty Dog game on the PS5 that's PS5 only. Presumably, it'll come out long enough into the life cycle that they can finally ditch the PS4 version.
Sure. They have to be working.
Who
on
knows?
It. I mean,
at this.
I mean, is Ratchet and Clank the closest that we have?
I suppose so, but that probably is it. And I haven't tried it, but like it seems like that's like I don't know.
And we haven't seen what Spider-Man 2 is going to be doing.
Exactly.
It's the same studio, isn't it? as Ratchet and Clank. So
that's true. Yeah. So I mean, it feels like a next-gen game to me, but obviously the gap between generations is smaller than it used to be. But
and Sony is still supporting both. Is the other thing.
Yeah.
Like the game is still coming out on both platforms, so it's like, is that hampering them in some way?
I mean, I think what it's doing is it's using what you're not getting is like you're getting like the peak of the old techniques, right? But you're not getting the new techniques. So I don't think it has ray tracing. I don't think it has Lumen. The Unreal Engine craziness. Sure. That's the next gen stuff that we haven't really seen. So, but it is the absolute peak of like prior gen graphics, I think.
Yeah, you see, I'm not. Although like things like Fortnite and stuff are now utilizing Unreal 5 and are actually running with Lumen and Nanite. But if you want to, it's like those assets in Fortnite are probably not designed to be.
No,
they're not designed with that stuff in mind.
I mean, I did see the DF video on that and on the Fortnite, and of course, it is night and day when you look at the classic one is the screen space reflections on water, and when you pan up, things disappear, and it's like the fact that is just fixed is great, obviously. But yeah, exactly. It's not the full showcase you want, is it? For the new
I think we're a whole
the Matrix demo. Yeah,
personally, I think I actually think we're a whole console generation away from being able to use this next step of rendering tech.
It's just still so expensive, and you need. Yeah, I mean, I suppose you've got the RTX, whatever the super hardware accelerated cards now, but that won't be. That will mean to be a new generation of consoles to have a version of that tech that's more advanced and a lot cheaper, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And storage for all these ridiculous assets. Yeah.
I guess so. But the texture quality in God of War is pretty damn good. I mean, you'll know better than you'll be able to pick out stuff, but it looks really nice in 4K. And it's not even like this is I don't know. They're not even going for necessarily like prettiest game ever or whatever, are they? But I don't know. That's what I'm saying. It's the artwork that's been put into the environments and stuff that makes it special. It's cool. And then, so God of War, and I played a bit more Stray, but similarly, that's like just nice environments. Obviously on a different scale because it's an indie game in comparison. But it's quite nice, relaxing to play, gradually revealing the story of the dystopia, the catty dystopia.
Yeah. There's a bit of me that's like, what if? I know I'm still catching up, but there's a bit of me that's just like, well, what if the Yakuza games were rendered in the same fidelity? Because they're doing quite a lot. They're like it's the sort of breadth versus detail thing, but I don't know. God of War is pretty breadthy as well.
But it's not fully open world or whatever. Like it's not. Yeah.
How if they really wanted to, how well could they render those real brands of whiskey?
I know. Well, what we want is today's equivalent of I think of Shenmue or something. Yeah, maybe
highly rendered food.
Highly rendered. Yeah. Well, no, it's 13, wasn't it? That had the.
No, it was 15, right?
Sorry, 15. You're right. I forget. 15 is the one that came out. 16 is the one that's
coming out.
Yeah. which were like faked in some interesting ways, but they were actually rendered in game. Like, but as far as I know, I think they only looked good from like one angle.
Yes.
Like, if you moved the camera at all, they broke. But you couldn't do that until you could hack the PC version of it. But yeah, that was some ridiculously good looking food. And then you got the side quest about cup noodles. Weird branding of cup noodles turns up in Final Fantasy.
It's like, what is GTA 6 going to look like? Is it going to be scaled back, to work on previous gen? I mean, I don't know, to make maximum money, presumably. I don't know.
Or by the time it comes out, have we not just hit the stride with this generation where it's not a problem?
And at what point does, what's the Tears of the Kingdom, look unacceptably bad, compared to a modern game? I don't know. I mean, obviously it's beautiful. I still think Breath of the Wild is beautiful, but it's like, in terms of the texture quality or whatever it is,
that's
or like,
I mean, they are like, again, this is the art versus technical side of things. You can art your way out of almost anything. Like,
and
but Nintendo are
a
very good at that.
They
generally.
are, but it's harder in a big open world epic than it is in a, I don't know, something like Splatoon or something. I don't know.
Well, that's why you stylize, right? That's why Nintendo do what they do.
Anyway, so continuing with those pretty good games.
Because that was what Final Fantasy 13 did, right? They could have moved to modern rendering styles, but they didn't. They doubled down on using older style techniques when, the 360 and like things like Gears of War were coming out with their more like naturally lit environments and things like that, whereas Final Fantasy 13 was saying, no, we're going to do things the PS2 way, but we're going to just make it way more detailed. And for that particular game, I don't have a problem with how FF13 looks. It's a pretty impressive looking thing, but it's not doing anything new, like technically, really. It's just doing it at much higher fidelity than the PS2 stuff did.
But that's cool. I mean,
and it works. Yeah. It works for them. They sort of art and styled their way out of the problem.
Which is cool.
I think I'm all for that. It doesn't really matter. And of course, elephant in the room, last year's game of the year, not for us, but for the rest of the world, Elden Ring, it's not, I mean, From Software games aren't really technical showpieces.
Doesn't need to be, I suppose, that one.
No, they get away with it.
I mean, they did quite a lot of work when they managed to turn their game into an open world game. That was quite a lot of effort for them.
Credit where it's due, sorting their engine out so it could cope.
Yeah,
that's a challenge a lot of people don't get over. I mean, how long did it take for the? They didn't get over turning Frostbite into an open world engine for Mass Effect, did they? That was one of its core problems. That and its animation foibles. Yeah, it's not.
True.
It's
true.
Yeah, going open world is a challenge, no doubt. Oh, and that was sort of other thing, because the engine they were running Final Fantasy 13 on couldn't deal with open worlds very well.
Yes, they had to keep it corridor based.
Yeah.
Until the one bit where it was a bit more open, and then there's like
nothing in there.
It's just flat, simple plains.
Right, I think that might be a podcast.
What's a podcast?
Yes. Always check out our website, happysalad.net, and our YouTube channel, Happy Salad. There'll be some more videos coming up. I think Rogue Legacy 2 has just dropped, so check that one out. And there'll be more.
Sonic Lost World is in the hopper, ready for next week.
So look forward to that next week.
Good
and we'll
faces.
catch you in a couple of weeks for another Saladcast. Goodbye.